Naruto. Bind to the invincible system. Infinite stacking and infinite upgrade of skills. Chapter 21. Yayu stood in front, holding his blade with one hand, gently exhaling a puff of white air. Let's try it now. Let's see if the calculation system is really useful. Great Sage. Do you want to activate thought acceleration? Thought acceleration. Yayu was stunned for a moment. Is this a new ability? Great Sage. This is the original function, it was just broken before. Yayu shook his head helplessly. Have any other functions recovered? Great Sage. Not yet. Next time any function is ready, tell me quickly. Great Sage. Understood. Before, he had to apply to use it himself, but now that the function is working, it doesn't notify him proactively. He was truly speechless about this. Great Sage, skill. Tell me, what exactly is thought acceleration? Great Sage. Simply put, it increases perception speed by 1,000 times, while enhancing the host's thinking ability, which is very helpful for developing new moves. Perception speed increased by 1,000 times. What does this mean? It's like a flash of light. Ordinary people would just see a sudden brightness. But Yayu could see the trajectory of the light, distinguish each beam, and see the order in which they arrived. Any subtle information, he could capture more clearly than an ordinary person. This, of course, made developing new moves twice as effective. Calculation activated. Currently performing preliminary deduction based on the host's thoughts, combining existing skills. Current linked skills. Woodleaf style swordsmanship, water release. Progress 1%. Alright, it's started. Do I not need to operate it myself? Great Sage. When the host performs woodleaf style swordsmanship, you can try adding water release. The collected data will help speed up the calculation. Yayu stared at the motionless progress bar. Waiting like this, he didn't know how long it would take, so he decided to cooperate. With the help of thought acceleration, Yayu found that his swordsmanship could be made more perfect, and controlling chakra for nature transformation also became much easier. He tried attaching chakra to the blade and succeeded on the first try. Moves that he originally thought would require long, hard practice were now easily mastered. The blade glowed with a faint blue light, and a subtle mist of water slowly swirled on the blade's surface. 10%, 12%, 15%, 19%. The calculation speed suddenly accelerated, catching Yayu a bit off guard. But he was actually waiting for such progress. Yayu tried to combine water release chakra with woodleaf style swordsmanship, but as soon as he performed the first move, the chakra attached to the blade suddenly disappeared. He tried hard to control his strength, but still couldn't stabilize it. It seems that maintaining chakra nature transformation while swinging a blade is indeed very difficult, otherwise, this kind of swordsmanship would have been popularized long ago. However, this failure actually increased the calculation progress by 10% at once. Yayu was a bit surprised. Failure can also increase progress. But he wasn't resigned. His brain raced, and he vaguely touched upon a key point. On the second attempt, the water release chakra finally stably wrapped around the blade, but the consumption rate was very fast. From the first move to the 10th, he only lasted until the 5th move before he couldn't hold on anymore. What surprised him even more was that the chakra consumption was far greater than expected. Simply adding nature transformation to swordsmanship didn't increase its power much, making it very cost-ineffective. No wonder no one in the ninja world researched this path, it was completely thankless. Calculation complete. Combined skills. Woodleaf style swordsmanship water release. Deduction complete. New skill, water breathing, successfully generated. In an instant, a large amount of memories about water breathing flooded into Yayu's mind, making him feel as if he had practiced it many times already. It really succeeded. He tightened his grip on the shinobi blade, his eyes sharpening as he stared at the wooden dummy in front of him. First form water surface slash. The sound of flowing water came at the moment he swung his blade. Although the movements were still a bit stiff, the water release chakra had already transformed into a sharp blade, cutting through the air to sever the wooden dummy, leaving a smooth, mirror-like cross-section. Then, second form water wheel. Third form flowing dance. Fourth form striking tide. Fifth form blessed rain after the drought. Sixth form whirlpool twist. Seventh form drop ripple thrust. Eighth form waterfall basin. Ninth form water splash. 10th form constant flux. Finally, the water curtain suddenly solidified. 11th form dead calm. The entire set of swordsmanship flowed seamlessly, each move identical to what was in his memory. But after the fifth move, the power of the swordsmanship not only didn't increase but became weaker and weaker. The later moves were even less powerful than the earlier ones. Great Sage, you can continue to deduce improvements, gradually increasing the power of the moves until they completely replicate the effects from the host's memory. In other words, the current deduction is not complete enough, it can only imitate the general idea. To truly master water breathing, he still needed to continue the deduction. Now the skill slot is put to good use. He placed the water-breathing swordsmanship into the skill slot to accumulate experience. With the experience accumulated in the skill slot, plus the Great Sage's deduction, he would eventually be able to perfectly replicate the moves from his memory. Passive Skill 7. Water-breathing swordsmanship. Complete one full practice. Yayu swung his long blade again. This time, the sound of flowing water was noticeably much louder. The water blade cut through the air, whistling as it flew. Crack! It easily severed a tree branch. Although the water flow condensed from water release chakra was not particularly fast, the high-speed flowing water possessed astonishing cutting power. Currently deducing 1%. Each time a complete water-breathing practice was finished, the deduction progress increased by 1%. Although the progress was slow, Yayu didn't have to worry about it himself, he could just leave it to the Great Sage and the skill slot. Practicing the entire set takes 3 minutes, and it can increase the deduction progress by 1%. In that case, one round of deduction can be completed in 5 hours. When this round of deduction ends, according to the Great Sage, at least 1 or 2 of the moves will have their power increased. The remaining 5 moves will require at least 4 more rounds of deduction. A total of approximately 20 hours. Not even a full day. No need to worry at all. Moreover, each time he practiced water breathing, it could also enhance his water release chakra and simultaneously improve his physical fitness and speed. This set of swordsmanship was no longer just ordinary swordsmanship, strictly speaking, it should be considered a ninjutsu taijutsu hybrid. Yayu was very satisfied with this result. He particularly liked this deduction function. However, the Great Sage was currently deducing water breathing, so it couldn't deduce other abilities simultaneously for now. That's enough for today. Actually, if water breathing were broken down into individual moves, with each move treated as a separate skill, Yayu could start deducing from the 6th move, which would be much faster. But the overall effect would definitely not be as good as a complete deduction. He would have to start all over again then, so Yayu decided not to split it. Anyway, it would only take a day. A complete deduction would not only perfect the later moves but also yield better results. If the earlier moves could be fully strengthened, the entire set of swordsmanship would become even more perfect. The Hokage version of water breathing was finally mastered. With swordsmanship, I also need a good blade. Yayu gripped the shinobi blade in his hand. This blade simply couldn't unleash the true power of water breathing. It seems he'll have to go to Konoha's largest ninja tool shop early tomorrow, either pick a top tier one or custom order one directly. Looking up, the moon was already high in the sky. Stayed up this late again. After returning home, he collapsed onto his bed and fell asleep. When he woke up the next day, Yayu found that the chakra in his body was almost overflowing, the total amount had tripled. By the standards of an ordinary ninja, his current chakra reserves were approximately 350 times that of a normal person. With such chakra reserves, perhaps only the Senju clan of the past in the entire Konoha village could compare, and even Uzumaki Naruto was far behind. He enthusiastically washed up, tidied himself, and left after breakfast. Standing at the entrance of Konoha's first ninja tool shop, Yayu hadn't even stepped inside when he saw a figure who was busy arranging ninja tools suddenly turn around. Tenten, this female ninja was notoriously wealthy in Konoha village. Her lavish fighting style, where she spent money like water, was something other female ninjas simply couldn't imitate. Although she would recover them afterward, being able to throw out a large number of expensive hidden weapons like a downpour made calling her a rich woman, not an exaggeration at all. Little one wants to buy ninja tools. Tenten scanned the young man who was a bit taller than herself. She hadn't seen this childish face before, so he shouldn't be a registered genin. However, he was quite pleasant to look at. She unconsciously brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. I want to buy a shinobi blade. A shinobi blade. She widened her eyes. It was already strange for an ordinary person to buy ninja tools, let alone a shinobi blade, which was even harder to master. Even official genin might not be able to use it well, it would be good enough if they could handle a kunai proficiently. You're not a ninja, are you? I'm a ninja school student, Moonlight Yayu. He quickly stated his identity, suddenly realizing that ninja tool shops might have requirements for customers. Moonlight Yayu, you're from the Moonlight family? Tenten asked with wide eyes. Yes, by the way, you're still studying at the ninja school, not even a genin, what do you want a shinobi blade for? Although this boy was quite handsome, Tenten always felt there was something wrong with his brain. The Moonlight clan was not good at using swords to begin with, and he wanted to play with a shinobi blade at this age before even graduating. Students nowadays start aiming high before they've even mastered hidden weapons. As someone who had been there, Tenten felt it was her responsibility to remind this boy, while using a shinobi blade was cool, if he didn't have the talent, he should give up early. Unexpectedly, Yayu just smiled. What does that have to do with you? Whether I buy a shinobi blade or can use it, what does that have to do with you? Her good intentions were taken for granted, and Tenten put the ninja tools on the table. You ungraduated brats are really ignorant. I'm doing this for your own good. There are only a few ninja in the entire Konoha village who use shinobi blades, how can swordsmanship be so easy to learn? Looking at you, you can't even use hidden weapons properly, and you want to play with a shinobi blade. Yayu sighed softly. Are you not doing business that comes to your door? HMPH. If selling you a shinobi blade causes you injury, it will only tarnish our shop's reputation. I'd rather not earn this money. Swish. A shuriken suddenly flew past Tenten's ear, deeply embedding itself into the wall behind her, the entire blade buried, leaving only a crack in the wall. This speed, this power, Tenten was stunned on the spot. When she looked back, the shuriken was already gone, she could only see the crack in the wall. This seemingly frail boy, his wrist strength was actually so strong. Perhaps comparable to Lee. Tenten turned her head in surprise. I didn't expect you, little brat, to be quite good with hidden weapons. But having strength alone isn't a skill. After she finished speaking, another shuriken flew past from the side. This time, the speed wasn't fast, and Tenten could clearly see its flight path. Then a third shuriken flew from another direction, spinning, drawing a graceful arc with the help of the airflow. Ding! The two shuriken accurately collided behind her. The two shuriken collided in midair, instantly changing direction and flying off to opposite sides. Tenten stared at the two shuriken that had accurately hit their targets on the wall, her eyes narrowing slightly. This is too amazing. Although she herself could achieve similar effects, Yayu's speed was clearly faster. What was most astonishing was his control over force. He had to control the striking force and ensure that both hidden weapons hit the target simultaneously. This difficulty was simply doubled. Tenten secretly looked at this little brat, who hadn't graduated yet, her face feeling a bit hot. She was both embarrassed by her earlier dismissive words and attracted by his calm, focused profile. Especially after realizing that he was also skilled in hidden weapons, it felt like she had been punched hard in the heart. Now, am I qualified to buy a shinobi blade? Yayu's voice brought her back to reality. You can, but, Tenten's eyes darted away, but there's a condition, a hidden weapon match with me. The winner gets one for free. Yayu raised an eyebrow. He certainly didn't care for ordinary shinobi blades, but sparring with a master of hidden weapons was exactly what he wanted. Tenten, after all, was known in Konoha for her pinpoint accuracy. Deal. The two went to the small training ground behind the shop. Seeing the well-equipped and spacious area, Yayu secretly clicked his tongue. As expected of Konoha's wealthiest ninja, his private training ground was almost as large as a public practice area. The rules are simple, Tenten said, pointing at a target 20 meters away. Each person gets 3 shurikens and 3 kunai, and we'll see who scores higher. You go first. Yayu took a step back. As the home player, Tenten calmly made her move, and 6 hidden weapons flew out one after another, all hitting the red bullseye. Your turn, she said, proudly turning the remaining kunai in her hand. Yayu, however, used both hands simultaneously, unleashing 6 streams of gecko. Ding, ding, ding. All the hidden weapons, surprisingly, pierced into the same hole one after another, forming a metal flower on the bullseye. Tenten was stunned for a moment. That's impossible, she thought, shocked. Both hands at the same time. She had never encountered anyone stronger than herself with hidden weapons, and she certainly didn't expect the opponent to be a handsome young man, even younger than herself. Is this a draw? Tenten looked at her target. If she calculated carefully, she had already lost. One more round. She was unwilling to admit defeat, especially in a hidden weapon duel. Yayu had no objection. How should we compare this time? Tenten tapped a button on a nearby table. In 30 seconds, that machine will automatically launch 15 moving targets. The person who hits all of them wins. Moving targets. Yayu nodded faintly. Okay. This time, Yayu went first. Yayu readily accepted, taking the opportunity to test the effect of thought acceleration in actual combat. Great Sage. Thought acceleration activated. He held a kunai in one hand. As soon as the first disc was shot out of the machine, Yayu had already clearly seen its trajectory. Though it was 30 meters away, he saw it clearly, as if it were right in front of him. The speed of the disc's rotation and the amplitude of its swing were all within his grasp, making it incredibly easy to predict where it would land. He raised his hand. As soon as the first kunai was released, Tenten was stunned. She actually heard the sound of it breaking the air. The kunai was so fast that it created a sonic boom. How much force would that require? Moreover, when the sonic boom sounded, she only then heard the sound of the machine launching the disc. The disc hadn't even completely left the launch port. Bang! The disc was directly shattered at the exit. Tenten was completely dumbfounded. This kind of dynamic vision, it's too exaggerated. This guy, from such a far distance, he actually shattered the disc directly at the launch port. Too fast. Does he not need reaction time at all? If it were her, she would at least have to wait for the disc to fly into midair before she could lock onto its trajectory. But Yayu was different. Bang, 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 15 consecutive crisp sounds, and all the discs shattered at the exit. Yayu turned to look at Tenten. Your turn. Tenten stared at him blankly, her throat moving slightly. This was no longer a gap in skill, but a crushing difference in talent. With such dynamic vision, it would be difficult not to hit the target. I surrender, Yayu said with a smile, surrendering before we even start. There's no need to compete. I'm not as amazing as you are, able to shatter the disc as soon as it comes out of the machine. At that time, the disc's speed was so fast that it was hard to grasp, and its trajectory changed in unpredictable ways. It was simply not something an ordinary person could keep up with. Such a handsome ninja, skilled in hidden weapons, was simply perfect. Wait, could he also know swordsmanship? How could there be such a perfect person in the world? Do you know swordsmanship? Yayu nodded decisively. Otherwise, why would I buy a shinobi blade? Can you demonstrate it? If your swordsmanship is good enough, I can forge a custom shinobi blade for you. You want to see me use a sword? Yayu was a bit confused, but more than the reason, he cared about whether he could get a good weapon for free. What kind of swordsmanship do you consider good? Yayu retorted. Tenten thought for a moment and said, if you can withstand my attacks for 10 seconds, that counts as passing. 10 seconds. Attack. Yayu raised an eyebrow, feeling as if this girl wanted to teach him a lesson. You want to spar with me? Having her thoughts seen through, Tenten challenged, scared. She wanted to regain her face, and she also didn't believe that this young man, who hadn't even graduated, could master both hidden weapons and swordsmanship simultaneously. Where would so many geniuses come from? I can spar, but you saw my strength just now, getting hit won't feel good. Tenten waved her hand and said, I'm a long-range ninja, I won't get close. You just need to use your sword to block my hidden weapons for 10 seconds. So that's how it is. Yayu chuckled, alright then. For safety, I'll use wooden hidden weapons. No need, Yayu said, pointing at the pile of metal hidden weapons, just use these. No need. Isn't he afraid of getting hurt? Seeing that Yayu didn't care about himself at all, Tenten said nothing more. Don't blame others if you get hurt later. Are you ready? Yayu didn't answer, just gently crooked his finger. Not even drawing his sword, this was too arrogant. Can being good-looking make him look down on female ninja? Tenten was a ninja who aimed to be like Lady Tsunade. How could she tolerate such contempt? With a flick of her wrist, 3 shurikens whizzed out, aiming straight for Yayu's forehead. I was too harsh. The thought had just arisen when Yayu tilted his head slightly, and the blade flew past, grazing his hair. His movements were as light as brushing away willow catkins. This speed doesn't even qualify you to make me take you seriously. Tenten's pupils constricted. She had seen ninja with quick reactions, but if their bodies couldn't keep up, it was useless. Whoosh! The ceiling scroll unfolded, and over 30 streams of gecko flew out from the white smoke. This time, she got serious. The trajectories crisscrossed into a net, leaving nowhere to escape. Yayu, however, smiled. The sword hilt and scabbard collided, making a crisp sound, and Tenten only felt a flash of silver light before her eyes. The metallic clashing sounds were as dense as rain, and all the hidden weapons were astonishingly cut down in midair. At this moment, the aura of the youth holding the sword suddenly changed, his eyes like poisoned blades. Tenten's back was instantly soaked with cold sweat, as if she were a rabbit being targeted by a beast. Swish! 10 paces away, a flash of sword light appeared. She heard the illusory sound of rushing tides and glimpsed a brushing past her skirt. Boom! Shards of rock flew everywhere, and a trench over 10 feet long cracked open at her feet, its cross-section as smooth as a mirror. Satisfied. Tenten's voice was tight. 3 days. I'll give you a new sword in 3 days. Yayu sheathed his sword. This ordinary shinobi blade was quite good to use, but he was already looking forward to what kind of ninja tool Tenten would specially forge for him. With the matter settled, Yayu was about to leave when Tenten suddenly called out to him, "Yayu." My name is Tenten." This sudden self-introduction made Yayu pause, unsure why she suddenly gave her name. But he quickly recovered. "Oh. Got it, nice to meet you, Tenten." After saying that, Yayu extended his hand. Tenten pursed her lips, swept her hair back from her temples, and then lightly touched his palm. After leaving Tenten's ninja tool shop, Yayu held the uniquely shaped shuriken in his hand. It was a welcome gift from Tenten. "This is too polite, I'll have to return the favor someday." Putting away the shuriken, Yayu hurried to Ino's house. He had promised to go earlier, but he had been delayed at Tenten's place for quite some time. He didn't notice that around the corner of the shop, Tenten was secretly watching his retreating figure. Strong, handsome, and an underclassman who hasn't even graduated yet. This time, I really hit the jackpot. When he arrived at Ino's house, Inoichi Yamanaka was staring at the gift Yayu was carrying. Such a young child actually knew to bring a gift when visiting. Thanks to Tenten's reminder, Yayu didn't visit empty-handed. Seeing how thoughtful this young man was, Haiichi's originally tense expression softened considerably. Although this person might be a scoundrel who would abduct his daughter, at least his manners were good. "Yayu-kun, come in." Ino poked her head out from behind her father, grabbed Yayu and pulled him inside, then turned back to glare fiercely at Haiichi, her eyes clearly warning him not to make things difficult for Yayu. Haiichi sighed helplessly. This child was already showing favoritism. But this boy was indeed good-looking, no wonder his daughter was so protective of him. "Yayu-kun, let's go to my room to review. We still need to brush up on our theoretical knowledge before graduation." Ino used studying as an excuse to bring Yayu into her room, and Haiichi's mouth twitched instantly. 2 young people alone in a room, that's not good, is it? He reached out to knock on the door, but then heard Ino reciting from inside, as if she were really seriously reviewing ninja theory. It wouldn't be good to barge in and disturb them, would it? What if they really were studying? Haiichi paced back and forth at the door, his brows furrowed, then suddenly a thought struck him. Chakra perception. He closed his eyes, carefully sensing the flow of the 2 chakra streams in the room. His original intention was to confirm whether they were doing anything they shouldn't be, but the next second, he suddenly opened his eyes wide. What is this? Chakra, is it really just chakra? How is that possible? A kid who hasn't even graduated from ninja school, how could he have this level of chakra? Haiichi could hardly believe his perception. Yayu's chakra volume was ridiculously large. If an ordinary ninja's chakra was like a small stream, then his chakra was like a rushing river, constantly growing, an inexhaustible source. In comparison, his daughter's chakra seemed insignificant. A genius, the Moonlight Clan was not a prominent family, nor did they have any powerful secret techniques. The highest-ranking ninja in their family was only Chunin level. The only one with decent talent, Moonlight Jaifeng, was only a special Jonin. However, nothing is absolute in this world. An occasional genius appearing was not impossible. To have such a terrifying amount of chakra at such a young age, when he grows up, he will definitely become an elite Jonin. Thinking of this, the worry on Haichi's face vanished, and he instead felt that his daughter had good taste. He smiled and simply left the house, not wanting to be a third wheel. As for the issue of a single man and woman alone in a room. Young people, full of vigor, it's normal to be a bit impulsive. At worst, they'll get married. In the room, Yayu and Ino were flipping through scrolls of ninja theory data. Yayu-kun, the graduation exam is coming up, are you confident? Yayu smiled easily, of course. Ino, however, was a little worried. Logically, Yayu's previous grades were only average to below average, so passing the graduation exam wouldn't be easy. But seeing his confident look, she didn't want to dampen his spirits, so she just clenched her fists and said seriously. It's okay even if you can't become a ninja, I'll protect you. Protect me. Yayu paused, then looked up at her. The two stood face to face, so close it felt like they were about to kiss the next second. Or start fighting, but he just smiled, his tone very firm. Don't worry, I've improved a lot, passing graduation will definitely be no problem. Really, if Yayu-kun is so confident, then I need to work harder too. Just as he was speaking, Ino suddenly shivered, realizing that Yayu had taken her hand at some point. Seeing that Ino had no intention of letting go, Yayu's eyes lit up, there was a chance. Keep telling the story. Oh, right, you said there was a dog that could hula hoop. Didn't you promise to show me? As Yayu spoke, he naturally put his arm around Ino's waist and gently pulled her closer. Ino quickly fanned her burning face with her hand. That dog, went out today, and hasn't come back yet, would it be alright if I show Yayu-kun next time? I see. Who cared about a dog at a time like this? There was clearly someone much more interesting than a dog right beside him, wasn't there? Ino, you need to drink more milk from now on. Huh, why? You drink what you want to replenish. Quote. Good times always flew by quickly. When it was time to part, Ino was still pondering the question from earlier. Yayu-kun, what exactly is the point of drinking milk? Yayu winked with a mischievous smile. Read those two words backward. After he finished speaking, he ran off before Ino could react. Watching Yayu's retreating figure, Ino suddenly understood, and her face instantly turned as red as a ripe apple. I'm still in my developmental stage. After closing the door, Ino still couldn't resist opening the refrigerator and silently taking out a carton of milk. Having left Ino's house, Yayu's thoughts now returned to his water-breathing training. The great sage's analysis of water breathing was also nearing completion. After showering, Yayu decided to give himself a break tonight. He had to go to ninja school tomorrow, so he needed to get enough rest. However, around 8 in the evening, the final analysis of the water-breathing sword technique would be complete, and he was still very much looking forward to the results. The moment the clock hands aligned. Great Sage. Water-breathing analysis complete. Skill data updating. Yayu closed his eyes, and a complete memory of the sword technique appeared in his mind. The power of forms 6 through 10 was finally no longer superficial, each move was as exquisite and perfect as it was in his memory. But he always felt like something was missing, the sword technique should be even sharper. Great Sage's tip. The original sword technique was created for slaying demons, it is naturally slightly inferior when used against humans. Is the difference very obvious? Yayu asked, tilting his head. The Great Sage's voice resonated in his mind, a world of difference. So, I need to continue the calculations to fully meet the requirements. Exactly. The Great Sage paused. However, I suggest that the master accumulate more practical combat experience, as this will greatly reduce the calculation time. Practical combat experience. Yayu blinked. Did he really have to fight someone? But he hadn't even graduated from ninja school yet, so he couldn't take on any missions. Practical combat doesn't necessarily mean life and death struggle. The Great Sage patiently explained, ordinary sparring can also accumulate experience. Sparring. Yayu suddenly understood. This was telling him to find other ninja to practice with. To perfect the water-breathing method and make it more suitable for this world, this step was unavoidable. It seems I'll have to make some noise this time. Yayu clenched his fist, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Konoha's training ground was very lively after school. After bidding farewell to Ino, Yayu walked towards the training ground alone. As he walked, he thought, with my current strength, I shouldn't be bad among genin, right? Although he hadn't truly fought anyone yet, he was quite confident in his skills. People came and went on the training ground. There were genin diligently practicing and chunin guiding their juniors. Yayu was looking around for a suitable opponent when he was suddenly interrupted by a shout. "Hey, you, kid over there." A ninja with an impatient look on his face walked over. "This isn't a place for you. Go home quickly." Yayu's eyes lit up. Wasn't his target delivering himself to him? "I was just passing by to look." He deliberately drew out his words. "Look at what? Is ninja training something a kid like you can watch?" The other person waved his hand as if shooing away a fly. "I don't have to look." Yayu shrugged. "Anyway, you guys aren't practicing very well." These words were like pouring water into a hot oil pan. All the ninja who were practicing nearby turned their heads, their gazes instantly becoming dangerous. Where did this arrogant kid come from? Looks like he's tired of living, daring to speak like that. Ninja were highly respected everywhere, not just because of their status, but also because they possessed strength beyond the reach of ordinary people. No one had ever dared to be so presumptuous in front of a ninja. "Hey, brat, tired of living, aren't you? I can crush you with one finger. If you know what's good for you, kneel down and admit your mistake." Kenny's body, as sturdy as a wall, blocked Yayu, glaring down at him. An ordinary child would have been paralyzed with fear, but Yayu chuckled instead. "Was I wrong? You guys are indeed too weak." Kenny's face instantly darkened like the bottom of a pot. "Since you're looking for death," he swung a fist larger than Yayu's head, whistling through the air towards his face. This punch would surely knock his teeth out. Unexpectedly, Yayu didn't even bat an eyelid, lightly raising a hand to firmly grasp the opponent's fist, which was larger than his own head. The surrounding genin spectators almost popped their eyeballs out. Some rubbed their eyes hard. "Did I see that right? Kenny actually lost to a scrawny kid." Kenny's face was beet red, his fist seemingly welded into the other's hand, unable to move. Yayu suddenly let go, and with a bang, the guy was sent flying a long distance. "What skills can I learn by fighting these useless people?" Yayu mumbled, and the great sage's voice suddenly echoed in his mind. He slowly drew his shinobi blade, the blade glinting silver in the sunlight. "Remember, my name is Moonlight Yayu. I originally thought I'd get to see some ninja skills." The boy pouted. "Turns out they're all just pretty but useless show-offs." The tip of his blade swept across the crowd. "Now, who wants to be my whetstone?" A profound silence fell, and it was a long while before the crowd erupted. These legitimate ninja, being treated as sparring partners by a greenhorn. "You little brat, don't go too far. I was just careless earlier. This time, I'll crush your bones and show you what a true ninja is like." Kenny scrambled to his feet, but before he could finish speaking, his throat suddenly felt cold. Yayu had appeared before him at some point, his shinobi blade, held in a reverse grip, pressed against his neck. "Save your strength." As soon as he finished speaking, Yayu did a backflip and kicked the man away. He looked coldly at the surrounding genin, his blade tip pointing at them one by one. "No guts. Not even one person dares to step forward. Is this what you call ninja?" These words ignited the crowd like a barrel of gunpowder. A red-faced person rushed out from the crowd, a kunai in his hand, glinting in the moonlight as he charged forward. Yayu didn't even turn his head, deflecting the weapon with a backhand slash and then slamming the person and the blade into the wall with a second strike. Too weak. Absolutely too weak. He had originally thought he was similar to these genin, but now it seemed he needed to re-evaluate. These people weren't even qualified to be his whetstone. Calculating. The great sage's mechanical voice echoed in his mind again, and Yayu pouted. Although they were all useless, at least they could provide some data for this broken system. "Is this all you ninja are capable of? Or, how about everyone attacks at once?" These words completely enraged the surrounding genin. They had never seen anyone so arrogant. "Charge!" Someone shouted, and a flurry of shuriken instantly rained down. Yayu looked at the ground littered with thrown weapons and sighed, shaking his head. "Compared to Tenten's barrage of pear blossoms, what you're doing is no different from peeing in the mud." The blade flashed like a silver serpent darting about, clanging and sparking. By the time everyone came to their senses, the ground was covered with thrown weapons split in half. What kind of evil sword technique is this? 3 fearless individuals rushed forward. Yayu glanced at their full-of-holes stances, lowered the tip of his blade to the ground, and then suddenly surged forward. With a whoosh, the one in front slid backward on his knees for 7 or 8 meters. He turned and stepped back, his blades back tracing an arc in the air. The second unlucky person took a heavy blow to the neck, instantly rolling his eyes and collapsing. The last genin sharply halted his steps. One more step forward, and his throat would have met Yayu's blade. Yayu looked up at him, but his gaze was as if he was looking down at the other person. No wonder you're still genin at your age, this taijutsu, tisk. In his eyes, the movements of this group were simply full of flaws. He could easily think of 5 or 6 ways to instantly kill them without even activating thought acceleration. Everyone, move aside, let me teach him a lesson with fire release. The crowd immediately dispersed, creating space for ninjutsu. Fire release. Fireball. A 1-meter diameter fireball whistled towards them, its heat scorching the fallen leaves on the ground. Yayu, however, slightly curved his lips. Finally, something interesting. He tightened his grip on his shinobi blade, and as he exhaled, the blade shimmered with water. The surrounding genin spectators secretly gloated. He's not dodging. He's going to be roasted alive. Water breathing. First form. The blade light poured down like a waterfall, and the fireball split in two. With a sizzle, the flames turned into white smoke and vanished. The caster stood frozen. He split a ninjutsu with a sword. This scene, which defied common sense, reminded him of the legendary Jonin techniques. Fake. It must be an illusion. Another person shouted, a kid who doesn't even use chakra. Again, Yayu flicked the water droplets off his blade. That last move was quite warm. Just as he cut the fireball, a prompt echoed in his mind. Calculation complete. Water breathing efficiency increased by 21%. This 5% increase made Yayu look at these genin as if he was looking at experience points. Scared, out of chakra, the taunt completely enraged everyone. The leader, his eyes red, roared, everyone, use ninjutsu. If we can't even handle a civilian kid. Fire release, earth release, water release. The chaotic sounds of hand signs exploded in the forest. In an instant, various ninjutsu erupted on the training ground, making Yayu beam with delight. Fire release, fire dragon jutsu. Water breathing, second form, water wheel. Yayu spun rapidly, his blade tracing a circle of water light, easily splitting the roaring fire dragon in half. The residual force hadn't dissipated, and the water even tore a bloody gash on the caster's shoulder. Almost simultaneously, attacks from behind followed. Earth release, earth split. The ground cracked open, and shattered rocks flew into the sky, raining down on Yayu. Water breathing, fourth form, striking tide. The blade light flashed, water surged, and all the flying stones were pulverized. The genin were astonished as they watched the water burst forth from Yayu's blade. What kind of sword technique is this? To be able to release water attribute chakra through swordsmanship? Unheard of. Some clever genin had already realized that something was wrong and that it had to be reported immediately. But the others, for the sake of their pride, gritted their teeth and continued to attack, using a mix of ninjutsu and taijutsu. Facing the encirclement of nearly 100 genin, Yayu was not afraid. Instead, he grew more excited the more he fought. Because, calculating, water breathing sword technique power increased by 30%. Water breathing sword technique power increased by 35%. Water breathing power increased by 43%. Yayu's swordsmanship grew stronger and stronger, making him inwardly ecstatic. These people aren't entirely useless, he thought to himself. They're pretty good for helping me practice water breathing. At this moment, Moonlight Jaifeng, who had just returned to the village, pushed open the door to Yayu's Moonlight family. Not home. At this time, Yayu should have already been dismissed from ninja school. Where did that kid go? Has he been practicing his sword well these past few days? Soon, Hayate Gecko would discover that Yayu had not only been diligently training but had also prepared a huge surprise for him. In the Hokage's office, a genin was reporting an unusual situation at the training grounds to the third Hokage. Hiruzen was initially reviewing documents, but upon hearing that Yayu, using a strange sword technique combined with powerful water release chakra, had single-handedly suppressed dozens of genin, he immediately looked up. It was important to remember that Yayu hadn't even graduated from ninja school yet, he wasn't an official ninja. Is this true? The genin nodded vigorously. The third Hokage waved his hand. dismissing the genin, then took out a crystal ball and used the telescope ninjutsu to look towards the training grounds. Upon seeing it, even the well-informed Hokage was stunned. Facing an overwhelming barrage of ninjutsu attacks, Yayu, holding his shinobi blade, drew an arc in the air, and immediately, water surged, forming a massive water vortex around him, blocking all of the enemy's attacks. A slender boy, a long blade. Even when surrounded by over 100 people, he could carve out a bloody path. What kind of genius was this? The third Hokage recalled Hayate Gekko's previous assessment of him, that this child's swordsmanship talent was comparable to Konoha White Fang. Now, seeing it with his own eyes, it was more than just comparable. He had clearly surpassed Kiba's limits. Even that legendary ninja hadn't been able to combine water-release ninjutsu and swordsmanship so skillfully. Yet, this young boy had done it. Although he's taking an unconventional path, this talent is certainly worth focusing on for development. The third Hokage exhaled a smoke ring, staring at the tireless swordsman in the crystal ball. Using over 100 genin as whetstones. Who taught him this fluid, flowing sword technique? On the training grounds, Yayu looked at his panting opponents. Boring. Water-breathing sword technique power amplification calculation, 57%. Starting 2 minutes ago, the challenge these genin could offer had reached its peak. However, to be able to elevate his sword technique to this extent, these sparring partners had certainly served their purpose. Not to mention their chakra was almost depleted. Each person had released at least 3 or 4 ninjutsu, which was close to the limit for a genin. As for Yayu, are you kidding me? Why is this kid still full of energy? Is he a stamina monster? What's with this sword style that comes with water release? Tired, the boy's lips curled slightly upward. The 6th and 7th skill slots in the passive bar were continuously providing dual power to water breathing. Infinite stamina, endless water release. From the beginning of the fight until now, his breathing hadn't even faltered. Is this your limit? In your early 20s, is your body already so fragile? I suggest you eat more supplements. These words made several genin jump in anger. To be called weak by a half-grown child. Simply outrageous. Brat, don't get too arrogant. Suddenly, 3 aggressive figures rushed out from the crowd, clearly not on the same level as the surrounding fodder. Chunin, or Jonin, Yayu raised an eyebrow. Although he didn't know their background, he suddenly became interested. Those genin were completely inadequate. These 3 looked like opponents who could help him improve his combat ability. You guys are much stronger than those wastes. Want to spar a bit? Yayu provoked unceremoniously. The 3 Chunin exchanged glances. This kid was way too arrogant. Kid, we're Chunin, you should think carefully. Chunin, Yayu snorted dismissively. Tisk, I thought I might encounter a Jonin. Is this all there is? The 3 immediately burst into anger. This kid actually looked down on their rank. Weren't Chunin the backbone in any village? You're asking for death. Swish, swish, swish. Several kunai sliced through the air. Clang, clang, clang. Yayu blocked with his horizontal blade, feeling the vibrations transmitted through the sword. Interesting. Now this is what I call a ninja. HMPH, kid, Chunin and Genin are completely different matters. A voice suddenly boomed from behind him. The speed was astonishing. Yayu's heart tightened, and he swung his blade back to meet it, sparks flying as their blades collided. The other 2 also lunged simultaneously. The 3 Chunin coordinated perfectly, their offensive sharp, putting no small amount of pressure on Yayu. Water breathing, 8th form, waterfall basin. As Yayu swung his blade down, a massive column of water shot skyward, forcibly interrupting the attacks of 2 of them. He took the opportunity to retreat, shaking his numb wrist, almost messed up. The 3 were secretly shocked. To be able to resolve a pincer attack in an instant, this kid was indeed not simple. The observing genin were even more speechless. It turned out that when this monster was dealing with them earlier, he hadn't been serious at all. Great Sage. Calculation efficiency increased to 30%, analysis function enhancement complete. Yayu, who was about to continue his attack, was interrupted by the prompt in his mind. He glanced at the updated data panel, a meaningful smile appearing on his lips. Calculation efficiency increased by 10%. That was indeed good progress. Analysis ability upgraded. What exactly does that mean? Wisdom mentor. Analysis function can be enhanced with calculation ability. When calculation efficiency reaches 30%, analysis ability will automatically upgrade. What new functions will be added after the upgrade? Wisdom Mentor. Capable of instantly analyzing opponent's moves. Directly analyze enemy moves. Are you sure? Previously, it could only analyze ninjutsu that others actively taught or that were written on scrolls. Now, it could analyze enemy skills in real time. This perfectly solved Yayu's most urgent need. Those three guys moved incredibly fast. It definitely wasn't ordinary movement, but body flicker technique. Yayu had always been very interested in body flicker technique. Immediately analyze the body flicker technique they just used. Wisdom Mentor. Beginning analysis. Estimated time, 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I can wait that long. Yayu's eyes lit up, and he tightened his grip on the blade slightly. The third Hokage watched. He gets even more excited when facing a strong enemy. This kid has quite the fighting spirit. This personality had its pros and cons. The good part was being brave and decisive. The bad part was being completely fearless of death, making him likely difficult to manage. Hokage-sama, you called for me. Moonlight Jaifeng pushed open the door and asked. The third Hokage nodded. Take a look. Your Moonlight family's boy is doing something that will shake Konoha. Something big. Did that kid cause trouble again? He hasn't even graduated yet. Sometimes he's quite impulsive. Impulsive. Impulsive is good. If not for his impulsiveness, I wouldn't have discovered such an amazing sword genius. Quote? Hayate Gecko was stunned. Listening to the third Hokage's tone, not only was he not blaming Yayu, but he was praising him. Hayate Gecko, your Moonlight clan will probably soon become famous throughout the ninja world. The third Hokage's words made Hayate Gecko even more puzzled. Why would they suddenly become famous? See for yourself. The third Hokage turned the crystal ball towards him. Hayate Gecko stared at the image displayed within. Yayu was single-handedly fighting 3 Chunin on the training grounds. The boy in the image not only actively attacked, fighting 3 against 1, but even fought them to a standstill, suppressing the 3 Chunin with just a shinobi blade. And also displayed sword techniques that astonished Hayate Gecko. With a flash of the blade, water surged, instantly cutting through an earth release wall that had risen from the ground. And a lightning-fast strike sent the earth release Chunin flying. In an instant, Yayu, without looking back, swung his hand, precisely knocking down all incoming projectiles. He suddenly pushed off the ground, accelerating at an unbelievable speed. An astonishing speed burst forth purely through taijutsu. Those Chunin fighting him, if they hadn't used body flicker technique, wouldn't have been able to dodge his fierce attacks. Even more shocking was Yayu's timing, which left Moonlight Jaifeng dumbfounded. He seemed to attack the ninja on the left, but then the blade shifted, forcibly changing direction at high speed, going directly for the target on the right. That ninja had just finished forming hand signs when a torrent of fire release came roaring towards him. Yayu advanced instead of retreating, his shinobi blade tracing a silver arc, and he rushed into the sea of fire like a whirlwind. In the blink of an eye, the tip of his blade was at the opponent's throat. Half an inch further, and the opponent would surely die. After defeating 2 Chunin consecutively, the last one quickly fell as well. The observing Moonlight Jaifeng secretly marveled. Even if he himself had acted, he probably couldn't have done it so cleanly. What was even more terrifying was that Yayu hadn't used invisibility release yet. If he combined that elusive invisibility technique, perhaps even 3 people wouldn't be able to withstand one of his blade strikes. Amazing. The third Hokage stroked his beard and praised, this Moonlight family boy's talent in swordsmanship is truly rare in 100 years. He suddenly turned and asked, did you teach him this sword style? Hayate Gecko quickly shook his head. How could I know such a profound sword technique? Oh, the third Hokage mused, then have you seen him use it before? Never. It seems I was right. A glimmer flashed in the third Hokage's eyes. This kid, within a few days of you leaving the village, created this astonishing sword style on his own. Hayate Gecko's mouth twitched upon hearing this. He had told him to practice his sword well, not to create his own school. Water and blade integrated, capable of producing such stunning new moves. Yayu's comprehension in swordsmanship had actually reached this level. Bring Yayu to me. The third Hokage commanded. Hayate Gecko quickly complied, his figure passing through the Hokage's office doorway like the wind. At this moment, his heart was also filled with doubt. Was that scene he just saw in the crystal ball really done by the boy he knew? On the Konoha training grounds, Yayu smiled as he sheathed his blade. Facing the three Chunin, each with a different expression, he suddenly said, "Thank you for the match." This unexpected politeness stunned the defeated. They would never know that when the boy said, "Thank you for the match," what appeared before his eyes was water-breathing sword technique power increased by 100%. Calculation complete. Water release burst power increased to 300% of base value. Triple the power. A seemingly effortless water release strike from before had now completely transformed. Analysis complete. New skill acquired. Body flicker technique. This battle had yielded considerable gains. Yayu touched the hilt of his blade, regretfully looking at the silent ninja. If they could have continued fighting, he might even have collected all 5 elemental ninjutsu. Yayu. A hoarse voice interrupted his thoughts. A red-faced Hayate gecko, leaning on his knees, panted, "Hokage-sama wants to see you." As he was pulled towards the Hokage's office, the boy muttered to himself, "It's just defeating all the genin, is it really enough to alarm the third Hokage? That sword style just now." Hayate gecko suddenly slowed his pace. "Did you come up with it yourself?" He nodded lightly. "Yes, I did." "When did you learn water release?" Leaving the sword style aside, when did Yayu master water release? "This is a ninjutsu scroll left by my parents. It took me 3 years to learn this water release." "So that's it." Hayate gecko looked at the young man in front of him. "How did you combine water release and swordsmanship?" "It's simple. Just use swordsmanship while casting water release." "Simple, simple." Hayate gecko's facial muscles twitched involuntarily. Is this what a genius is? To describe such a thing as simple. If combining water release and swordsmanship was truly that easy, why would no one in the ninja world have created such a technique over so many years? This kid seemed completely unaware of how remarkable what he did was. Not long after, Yayu arrived at the Hokage building. This was his first time here. Inside the Hokage's office, the young man curiously observed the leader who had governed Konoha for decades. Third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. That day, while Hiruzen was observing Yayu, the young man was also carefully watching him. Although he had seen him through a telescope before, this was their first face-to-face meeting. Hiruzen stared at Yayu, his eyes reflecting the young man's abundant confidence. Even when facing the Hokage, there was not a trace of fear or surprise on the young man's face. Such behavior did not resemble that of a 12-year-old child in any way. However, being able to create such swordsmanship was already beyond what an ordinary child could achieve. "Your name is Moonlight Yayu, right?" At Hayate gecko's signal, Yayu stepped forward and bowed. "Yes, Lord Third. Your parents were both excellent ninja. Konoha will always remember their contributions." Is he trying to appeal to my emotions? Yayu's eyes immediately dimmed a few shades. Seeing the young man's expression, Hiruzen sighed softly. "Let bygones be bygones. I shouldn't have brought it up again. It's just that whenever I think of the ninja who sacrificed themselves for the village, this old man." Looking at the third Hokage's sorrowful expression, Yayu couldn't tell if this emotion was genuine or feigned. Perhaps the old man was truly sad, but his actions. "Yayu, that set of swordsmanship on the training ground just now, who taught you?" The young man looked up. "Brother Hayate gecko taught me." "Huh." Hayate gecko froze on the spot. "When did I teach you that?" "Yayu, when did I teach you? You taught me the Konoha-style swordsmanship, have you forgotten? Konoha Sword Shadow. Konoha-style swordsmanship." Moonlight Jaifeng took a deep breath. "I did teach you techniques, but those on the training ground just now, can they even be considered Konoha style?" "Of course." The ponytail behind the young man's head swayed gently. "It's just that I added some of my own ideas." "Ideas? This is called ideas?" Hayate gecko almost choked on himself. This wasn't a slight modification, it was completely dismantling the entire swordsmanship. The third Hokage stroked his pipe and smiled. "Interesting. You're saying that the techniques just now originated from the Konoha style?" "That's right." Yayu nodded decisively. "Integrating water release into swordsmanship, this has gone beyond the scope of adaptation." A wisp of smoke rose from the pipe. "This is creating a new style." "Kid, who taught you your water release?" "Scrolls left by my family." Yayu took out a yellowed parchment scroll. "It was left by my father." Hiruzen Sarutobi narrowed his eyes. The records showed that Moonlight Aikikyo was indeed skilled in water release. As for his early deceased medical ninja mother, her chakra nature wasn't recorded. Being able to master water release just from scrolls. The Hokage tapped his palm with his pipe, so you had a sudden inspiration and added water release to your swordsmanship. The young man scratched his head sheepishly. I just felt that simply swinging a sword was too monotonous. Just for that reason, does your new swordsmanship have a name? Water breathing. The old Hokage pondered the term repeatedly, then suddenly smiled, his face full of wrinkles. Splendid. He looked at the child before him, an orphan with clear eyes. Although the Moonlight clan was not a large clan, they took good care of orphans. You're graduating soon, aren't you? He tapped the table with his pipe. Work hard. Konoha's future needs new sprouts like you. Stepping out of the Hokage building, Yayu finally breathed a sigh of relief. That hurdle was cleared, but in a windowless secret room in the shadows, a one-eyed old man was listening to a full report. The basement was dark and damp. Danzo narrowed his eyes, his fingers constantly tapping the armrest. HMPH, how can a small clan like the Moonlight clan produce such a person? His voice carried a hint of coldness. At such a young age, to be able to create such swordsmanship. How is the analysis of that kid's swordsmanship coming along? A root ninja wearing glasses pushed up his spectacles and respectfully handed over a report. Based on the wounds, combat traces, and eyewitness descriptions, it can be confirmed that the power of this swordsmanship is no less than some forbidden jutsu. If performed by a taijutsu master, the combat power would be greatly enhanced. It has almost reached the level of an elite jonin. Upon hearing this, Danzo's fingers suddenly stopped. He didn't care about that kid Yayu, he was just a talented swordsmanship genius. It was too late to cultivate him now, and since Sarutobi had already set his sights on him, he couldn't be snatched away. But, he absolutely had to get his hands on this swordsmanship. Yayu had just entered his home and hadn't even had time to catch his breath. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking sound rang out again. Moonlight Jaifeng walked in, carrying a pile of scrolls. These are the swordsmanship materials Konoha has collected over the years. Hayate Gecko placed the scrolls on the table. Our village doesn't prioritize swordsmanship as much as Kumogakure or Hidden Mist, so consider these as a foundation for you. Lord Third said that since you have talent in this area, you might be able to comprehend something from them. Looking at the mountain of scrolls piled on the table, at least 200 or 300 of them, Yayu's eyes lit up instantly. Great sage. Analyzing different schools of swordsmanship can further enhance the power of water breathing. This trip to the Hokage's office wasn't in vain. Too bad, they weren't ninjutsu scrolls. After seeing Hayate Gecko off, Yayu immediately rushed to the scrolls. Great sage, begin analysis. Great sage. Analyzing. Estimated completion time, 1 minute. An ordinary scroll would take about a minute to analyze, while profound ones might take longer. Yayu looked at the room full of scrolls and sighed. No sleep tonight, but for the sake of becoming stronger, what was staying up all night? Analyzing these swordsmanship techniques would not only help water breathing but also be useful for creating new techniques in the future. Thinking of this, he immediately perked up and opened the first scroll. In the Hokage's office, the third Hokage watched the scene in the crystal ball. The young man was intently studying the scrolls, not even lifting his head. The old man stroked his beard and smiled. It seems this gift is exactly to his liking. These swordsmanship scrolls were nothing to Konoha. In the ninja world, how could swordsmanship be as valuable as ninjutsu? One could buy a pile of them for a small sum. Konoha village had countless swordsmanship secret techniques stored away. Rather than letting them gather dust in the warehouse, it was better to let a talented kid like Yayu practice with them. Who knows, this kid might just come up with something else that will make people look at him with new respect. He stayed up all night. Yayu didn't even blink. The third Hokage finished his official duties late at night, looked at the training ground through the crystal ball, and found that the kid was still engrossed in reading scrolls. He was completely absorbed, as if mesmerized. The old man shook his head and left him to it. The next morning, Yayu, with 2 dark circles under his eyes, staggered into the ninja school gate. Yesterday, he had managed to read all the sword manuals, only getting 2 hours of sleep. Although his eyes were seeing stars, this time he definitely profited. Great sage. Analyzing and inferring, expected completion before school ends. This upgrade can increase the power of water-breathing sword techniques by 200%, 400%. Previously, it enhanced the water release effect within the breathing technique. This time, it focused on improving the power of the swordsmanship itself. After all, having strong water release alone wasn't enough. Sword techniques and water release had to work together to maximize their effect. Yayu didn't bother to check the progress. As soon as he entered the classroom, he froze. The whole class had erupted. Look, it's Moonlight Yayu. I heard this guy took down over 100 genin by himself yesterday. His swordsmanship is amazing. He knocked people down in just a few flashes. Even dozens of chunin were beaten so badly they couldn't get up. To be able to defeat regular ninja before graduating, that's too exaggerated. It seemed yesterday's battle had already spread throughout the school. Yu-kun. Good morning. Ino's voice came from behind. Yayu turned and replied. Ino blinked her big eyes and asked, is what they're saying true? Did you really fight over 100 people by yourself? Yayu nodded decisively. You never showed it normally. Shikamaru, who had appeared at some point, stared intently at Yayu, his eyes full of doubt. Choji, next to him, crunched on potato chips. Exactly. If your swordsmanship is so strong, why didn't you use it before? Yayu shrugged. School exams don't test swordsmanship, why bother with the effort? This explanation sounded reasonable, but his taijutsu class grades were usually just average. Is there really such a big difference between swordsmanship and taijutsu? Bragging, aren't you? Can you really take on 100 people? Inazuka Kiba, holding Akamaru, leaned over to question. Although he wasn't particularly close with Yayu normally, this record was too outrageous. Yayu didn't bother to explain, giving him an, believe it or not, look directly. Shino secretly watched Yayu, pondering, those rumors aren't necessarily all true, but they're not necessarily all false either. This guy Yayu definitely has some real skill. Hinata and Sakura also walked over. They didn't speak, but the way they looked at Yayu was different from usual. Just then, Naruto suddenly squeezed out of the crowd, grabbed Yayu's shoulder, and shouted, Yayu! How did you secretly become so strong? Quickly teach me your swordsmanship. Taking down over 100 ninja by yourself is so cool. Naruto had always thought Yayu was similar to himself, both at the bottom of the class, at most a little stronger than him. Now, discovering that this guy was actually a master, he was so anxious he was jumping up and down. Before Yayu could speak, Sasuke happened to pass by, scoffed, and said, HMPH, they're just useless genin. What's there to show off about beating trash who can't even become chunin at that age? He stared at Yayu, waiting for a response, ready to challenge him immediately. Such an opponent was nothing to him. Yayu, however, smiled and waved his hand. Actually, it's not that exaggerated, it just got distorted in the telling. Hearing this, Sasuke sneered and walked away. The other classmates also believed him, thinking Yayu had probably just defeated a few ordinary genin. In the crowd, Shikamaru couldn't help but smile wryly. If he hadn't happened to witness it firsthand at the training ground yesterday, he almost would have believed it. Yesterday, Yayu was arrogant and conceited, but today he pretended to be humble. Shikamaru knew in his heart that with that exquisite swordsmanship, if his shadow imitation jutsu couldn't catch him, he would probably be dealt with in one move. Graduation was approaching. Although Yayu was denying it now, everyone would soon see, the most formidable person in this class was no longer Sasuke. Students, the day of your graduation from the ninja school is getting closer and closer. Uruka stood at the podium, surveying the classroom, his gaze lingering on Yayu for a moment. I hope everyone makes good use of the remaining time and trains hard. After this reminder, he waved his hand. That's all for today, class dismissed. As soon as Yayu left school, he went straight home. He took out his shinobi blade and quickly headed to the secret training ground. The great sage's deduction is complete. The sword technique scrolls piled up like a mountain, containing the essence of 300 to 400 different sword styles, have been perfectly integrated into the water-breathing system. Now, it's finally time to test the actual effects. Yayu gripped his shinobi blade and performed each of the 10 forms one by one. The effect far exceeded his expectations. The power of the water flow surged several times, and the sword strikes were incredibly sharp. The essence of hundreds of sword techniques merged into one within water breathing, making him feel that his sword technique had completely transformed. Looking across the entire Konoha, perhaps no one could compare to him in sword technique. Every sword technique he studied was equivalent to fully mastering it. And the water breathing, after integrating so many sword techniques, naturally possessed extraordinary power. From now on, he only needed to rely on passive skills for continuous enhancement. The dual benefits brought by water breathing, no stamina consumption and no water release consumption, allowed him to focus on researching more water release ninjutsu. But the current problem was, the genin at the Konoha training ground had already been defeated by him, and they didn't possess many ninjutsu. Chunin and Jonin wouldn't appear at the training ground. Perhaps in the future, he could research some wind release, earth release, and lightning release ninjutsu, preparing for mastering the 5 nature transformations. Currently, the most important thing was to improve his speed. Last time, when fighting a Chunin, if the opponent hadn't used the body flicker technique, the battle would have ended much sooner. It was the difference in speed that gave them a chance to maneuver. So now, Yayu had to exert all his effort to improve his body flicker technique. As one of the advanced 3 body techniques, the body flicker technique was usually only mastered by jonin or special individuals, and this technique was worth his effort to improve and innovate. There were actually many types of body flicker technique. Any technique that could achieve instant movement could be called a body flicker technique. Yayu felt they could be roughly divided into 3 types. The first type was ninjutsu body flicker, which involved concentrating chakra at the soles of the feet and suddenly bursting it out to achieve high-speed movement. The second type was taijutsu body flicker, like Might Guys, which relied on the body's strength for rapid movement. The third type was elemental body flicker, such as Gaara's sand body flicker. The most special one was Shisui's body flicker technique. Yayu was most interested in elemental body flicker. The first 2 types could be learned as long as one had enough chakra or good physical fitness, but elemental body flicker was much more complex. It not only allowed for rapid movement but also allowed the body to transform into an elemental form. For example, Gaara's sand body flicker was transforming himself into sand to move. However, elemental body flicker required troublesome hand seals, making it difficult to complete quickly in emergencies, so it was not used frequently. But Yayu had the passive skill slot as a cheat, which could continuously enhance the speed of elemental body flicker and simplify the hand seal process. For him, elemental body flicker was actually the most suitable. Now Yayu wanted to develop his own set of elemental body flicker. He currently mastered fire release and water release. After analysis by the Great Sage, although fire release body flicker was fast and could come with fire attacks, it was difficult to learn and there wasn't much information available. In contrast, water release body flicker was more suitable for him. Yayu also thought so. After all, he had 2 water breathing skills, which allowed him to use water release without additional conditions. If he used fire release, he would need 2 more skills. Historically, Hanzo had used water release body flicker, which allowed him to transform into a stream of water to move. He wondered if, with Yayu's current level, the Great Sage could help him achieve a similar effect. Great Sage's suggestion. It is recommended that the host prioritize improving water release and body flicker technique, as this will significantly reduce the calculation time. Currently, it is estimated to take 1 month. 1 month, that's too long. However, considering the uniqueness of the elementalization effect, such a time was reasonable. If more water release ninjutsu can be collected, the calculation progress can be even faster, the Great Sage added. But how easy was it to get ninjutsu? Even if he stayed at the Konoha training ground every day, at most, he could secretly learn 1 or 2 techniques, which wouldn't help much with the overall time. Strengthen water release and body flicker technique. There was a shortcut, just put the skills into the passive slot. The current passive skill configuration was 1. Chakra refining technique. 2 to 3. Water release. 4 to 5. Body flicker technique. 6 to 7. Water breathing sword technique. The adjusted new skill slots would greatly improve efficiency. This was equivalent to simultaneously strengthening 3 types of water release, 2 basic water release skills plus the compound bonus from water breathing. Although water breathing primarily improved sword technique and speed, it also provided additional help to water release. Specific operation frequency. Body flicker technique activates once every 20 seconds. Sword technique cycles once every 2 minutes. Water release operates once every 30 seconds. According to the Great Sage's calculations, 1% of the calculation progress could be advanced per hour. At this rate, the entire calculation would be completed in 4 days. 4 days sounded not long, but Yayu couldn't wait any longer. With graduation from the ninja school approaching, he had to master all 5 nature transformations before leaving. The calculation process does not affect the use of the analysis function, the great sage suddenly reminded him. This meant that while the system was running in the background, he could still go to the training ground to learn other genin's ninjutsu. While the system was operating, he could manually collect 5 elemental ninjutsu, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He looked up at the sky. It was already late, and the training ground must be empty. No chance tonight, but he had to seize the opportunity in the next few days. Although he couldn't invoke the calculation ability, real-time updates to skill status were no problem. The power of water breathing could continue to increase, and at the same time, the techniques of water release nature transformation and body flicker technique could continuously improve. This way, his calculation efficiency would increase significantly. Of course, training couldn't stop. In the next few days, Yayu mainly practiced body flicker technique and water release nature transformation. Body flicker technique was optimized and adjusted 32 times. Water release nature transformation was improved 4 times. Water breathing was updated only once. The fewer adjustments, the more it indicated that Yayu had trained that ability to its current limit. The next morning, Yayu woke up and felt the chakra within his body. It was about 500 times that of an ordinary ninja, but the growth rate of chakra had begun to slow down. However, 500 times the amount was already enough. Even the 3rd Hokage didn't have that much chakra. In terms of physical fitness, Yayu felt there was also an improvement, but he had mainly been practicing sword technique recently, so his speed and reflexes had become sharper. Currently, there were no extra skill slots to learn genjutsu, so the improvement of mental power could only be put on hold for now. As he left, Yayu found a note tucked into his mailbox at the door. He was a little surprised. In Konoha, who would leave him a message? Strictly speaking, it wasn't even a letter. He opened the note to see. Tenten, Yu-Kun, your custom shinobi blade is ready. You can pick it up today. Oh, that's right. Last time he went to customize a shinobi blade, Yayu had indeed left his address with Tenten. He definitely couldn't go to the training ground after school today. He had to go get his exclusive shinobi blade first. He wondered what this blade would look like. Yayu's heart was filled with anticipation. As a result, he was distracted all day. Even Ino noticed his unusual behavior. With the help of the skill slots, even without mentioning its powerful abilities, the Great Sage skill alone allowed Yayu to easily master all the theoretical knowledge in class. Content that used to give him headaches now became much simpler. Finally, school was over, and Yayu immediately ran to Tenten's shinobi tool shop. Upon arriving at the shop, after Tenten saw off the last customer, she mysteriously led Yayu into a small room inside. Tenten took out a shinobi blade wrapped in cloth, looking exceptionally mysterious. Yayu couldn't help but ask, "How is this blade, really?" Tenten saw his eager expression and couldn't help but laugh. "Now you're acting like a child." What's wrong with being a child? He was a child. Yayu stared intently at the shinobi blade in Tenten's hand, and Tenten no longer hid it. This shinobi blade is made of a special alloy. Since I promised to give you a gift, I tried my best to make it the best. I hope you like it, she said, slowly unwrapping the cloth around the blade. Yayu instantly held his breath. It was truly beautiful. Dark blue patterns flowed on the black blade. The blade's size was standard but slightly heavy, and the hilt was wrapped in black cord, simple and elegant. This understated decoration perfectly matched the overall aura of the blade. If not for the blue glowing patterns, Yayu would have almost thought it was Ichigo Kurisaki's Tensa Zangetsu. Although there were some differences in details, the similarity was at least 70% or more. Are you satisfied? Tenten nervously rubbed her hands. It's amazing, I love it. Yayu nodded quickly. Want to try it? The moment he took the shinobi blade, the unexpected weight made him blurt out, "It's so heavy." This special metal does have a higher density, Tenten explained, but it's definitely a top-grade material for crafting weapons. Although he complained, Yayu's movements as he swung the blade were fluid and natural. Watching his skilled movements, Tenten, though she already knew the boy had considerable strength, his actual performance still exceeded her expectations. It seems to complement you very well. It's really easy to handle. Although it's a bit heavy, it feels like it was tailor-made for me. The girl's ear tips turned slightly red. Tailor-made. Give this weapon a name. Although shinobi tools don't necessarily need names, having a name might make them stronger, you know. Yayu couldn't help but laugh. He didn't expect such a saying in another world. Looking at the pitch-black blade, he blurted out, then let's call it Zangetsu. Since it was so similar to Tensa Zangetsu, he would simplify it. Moonlight Yayu paired with the shinobi blade Zangetsu, it sounded quite fitting. Thank you, Tenten, this is definitely a peerless good blade. Without even trying it in actual combat, just swinging it in the air produced a whistling sound. The sharpness of this blade excited the young man greatly. With it, the power of water breathing would surely reach another level. His fingers gently traced the cold blade. A strange chill seemed to be hidden within the metallic touch. As he sheathed the blade, Yayu earnestly said to the girl, "Thank you, really. As long as you like it, then our bet is over." Yayu softly hemmed. This ninja blade was indeed a bit long for his 12-year-old self. Hanging it directly on his waist wasn't very suitable. He could only tie it horizontally across his back. This also made drawing the blade convenient. Yu-kun, are you free tonight? I'd like to treat you to dinner. Tenten suddenly said. Dinner? Yayu was startled. He looked at the sky. The Konoha training ground should still have genin practicing now. He originally planned to stake out the place to see if he could research one or two ninjutsu, preferably water release types. But Tenten had just given him such an expensive blade, directly refusing wouldn't be very good. I'm afraid I can't today. Graduation is approaching, and I need to seize the time to train. How about I treat you once I officially become a genin? This reason was sufficient, and Tenten expressed understanding. Before graduation was indeed crucial. It's a promise, then. You can't go back on your word when the time comes. Don't worry, I always keep my promises. Yayu stood up, ready to leave. Tenten also stood up to see him off. As the two walked to the shop entrance, Yayu suddenly felt a sharp gaze fixed on his back. He turned his head and, following the line of sight, saw Neji. He and this Hyuga clan genius had never met, so why was the other's gaze so unfriendly towards him? Yayu frowned slightly, glancing at Tenten beside him. Could it be because of her? Lee, who was standing next to Neji, also looked over and walked directly towards them. You're the one Tenten said was good with projectile weapons and excellent at sword technique, right? I'm Rock Lee, Konoha Genin. Seeing Lee extend his hand, Yayu also shook it. Moonlight Yayu, ninja school student. You're already this good before graduating. I really look forward to the day you become a genin. We must have a sword technique match then. Lee looked serious. Yayu shrugged indifferently. Anytime. He was in a hurry to get to the training ground and didn't have time to chat. Finally, he waved to Tenten and left. Chapter 31. After Yayu had gone far, Neji stared at his back and whispered, "Yesterday, this guy single-handedly took down over 100 genin at the training ground." What? Lee's eyes widened. He's that strong. Neji's gaze grew even more serious. How could such a genius not attract attention? Hostility was only natural. I want to fight him even more now. Lee excitedly clenched his fists. Lee clenched his fists tightly, having encountered another genius. Fighting such a genius would be the perfect way to prove to everyone that hard work alone could defeat talented individuals. Regardless of how Neji and Lee viewed Yayu, Yayu had already arrived at the Konoha village training ground. Around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, the training ground was indeed much quieter. Now, only a dozen or so people were still diligently practicing, most of them focusing on taijutsu. There were even some practicing ninjutsu. Too bad it wasn't water release. The ninja was performing wind release, and while it was a bit disappointing that it wasn't the desired water release, it was still acceptable. Wind release. At least he could master one more chakra nature transformation. Great Sage, can you analyze his wind release? Great Sage, analyzing. Yayu stared at the analysis progress bar. 10%. 12%. 14%. The progress was quite fast. It was estimated to be completed in about 2 minutes. The ninja seemed to be preparing to rest, and if he stopped, the analysis would be interrupted. Fortunately, he only adjusted himself and quickly began forming hand signs to cast the jutsu again. After casting ninjutsu twice in a row, his chakra was significantly depleted. And he finally stopped to recover his stamina. Yayu showed a satisfied smile. Analysis complete. New skill obtained. Wind release, beast wave palm, wind nature transformation. This wind release ninjutsu was quite useful, and more importantly, he gained the wind nature chakra transformation. Wait, maybe I can try developing wind release body flicker technique. Without needing to compare, he knew that wind release body flicker would definitely be faster and more concealed than water release body flicker. Great Sage. Estimated research and development period of 6 months. It would actually take 6 times longer than water release body flicker. He should focus on mastering water release body flicker first. Yayu watched as the genin on the training ground gradually thinned out. There weren't many people left, so he decided to head home as well. On the way back, Yayu tried using the body flicker technique to travel. How much had this skill, which had been active all day, improved? Whoosh! Disappearing instantly from his spot, Yayu, moving at high speed, appeared on a rooftop dozens of meters away in the blink of an eye. The speed of the body flicker technique is indeed impressive. What if it's combined with invisibility release? Yayu's figure gradually became transparent, and his presence also became concealed. In his transparent state, Yayu once again used the body flicker technique. Although it created a slight whooshing sound, it was almost imperceptible if one didn't listen carefully. The combination of invisibility release and body flicker technique worked surprisingly well. The body flicker technique he was currently using had long surpassed the limits of ordinary ninja. Body flicker technique combined with invisibility release made him faster while also concealing his presence, allowing him to move like a ghost, without a trace. He could almost imagine the scene in actual combat, his figure suddenly disappearing, then reappearing behind an enemy without a sound, delivering a fatal blow. Facing an opponent of similar strength, there would be no time to react before being killed. Once water release body flicker technique is perfected, I'll raise invisibility release to another level. Yayu, you're finally back. Where have you been so late? As soon as he entered the door, Yayu was stopped by Hayate Gecko, who had been waiting for him. Actually, Hayate Gecko lived in the alley next door. I went to the shinobi tools shop to pick up a custom-made blade. Yayu took out Zangetsu from his back, its scabbard obscuring its appearance, so Hayate Gecko didn't notice anything unusual. No matter how special a blade was, it wouldn't stand out with a scabbard on. So urgent. Hayate Gecko smiled and shook his head. Didn't we agree I'd give it to you when you graduated? Yayu was about to explain, but the other party waved his hand. It's fine if you bought it yourself. Did you wait for me for something specific? Under the moonlight, Hayate Gecko scratched his head, showing a rare hint of hesitation. Could I see your sword skill? So that was the reason. Yayu smiled. Of course. This set of water breathing was specially designed for him by the Great Sage. Outsiders couldn't learn it at all. However, since Hayate Gecko wanted to see it, he was naturally willing to demonstrate. After all, Hayate Gecko's previous guidance on Konoha-style sword skill had helped him a lot. He could repay him later when he had the chance. To the old spot. Old spot. Hayate Gecko looked confused. The forest where you took me to practice sword skill last time, it's my exclusive training ground now. Okay. After dinner, the two arrived at the clearing in the forest. Looking at the completely transformed training ground before him, Hayate Gecko's pupils constricted. The ground was covered with spiderweb-like cracks, broken trees lay scattered, and there were deep blade marks everywhere. They're all from my blade practice. Yayu slowly drew Zangetsu. A blue light emanated from the dark blade, like flowing water. Under the moonlight, Hayate Gecko immediately held his breath. This blade is definitely not ordinary. The blade flashed, and a crisp sound echoed through the forest. Yayu wielded the Zangetsu shinobi blade. This was his first time using this blade to perform water breathing. Where the blade passed, he felt an unprecedented smoothness, as if this was the true power of water breathing. His movements were fluid and continuous. Under the moonlight, Hayate Gecko watched from the side, dumbfounded, surprised, and helpless. After completing a full demonstration of the sword skill, Yayu turned and asked, "Brother Hayate Gecko, did you understand?" Hayate Gecko, under the moonlight, smiled wryly and shook his head. "It seems my sword skill really can't compare to yours. Although I can feel the power of this sword skill, let alone learning it, I can't even use it as a reference." Seeing his somewhat disheartened companion, Yayu comforted him, "This is normal. Water breathing was created based on my characteristics, others might not be able to learn it at all." During their conversation, Yayu noticed the water attribute chakra flowing in his palm. It had been over a day since he added water release to his skill bar. Now, when using water breathing, not only had its power increased, but his control over water release had also significantly improved. Now, with just a thought, he could complete the nature transformation of water release, and even create astonishingly powerful form changes with a tiny amount of chakra. Was this the effect of enhanced nature transformation? A new idea suddenly popped into Yayu's mind. He put away his blade and quickly formed hand signs with both hands. The moment his eyes snapped open, a massive wave instantly surged behind him. A 10-meter-high wall of water roared towards the forest, making a thunderous sound. Moonlight Jaifeng was startled by this sudden sight. What kind of water release is this? How is it so powerful? If he knew this was just the most basic water release, wild water wave, he would be even more surprised. After the water receded, Hayate Gecko was about to ask, but found Yayu staring blankly with a silly smile. It turned out he had discovered that with the same amount of chakra, the power of his water release had now more than doubled. He finally understood why Madara Uchiha could overwhelm the allied shinobi forces with a single fire release technique. This was the qualitative leap after nature transformation was enhanced. Even more surprising was that he hadn't actually spat out water from his mouth just now. Instead, he had directly condensed water outside his body. This was a new ability gained from the improvement of water release nature transformation. Even if there was no water around, he could still complete the nature transformation outside his body by precisely controlling his chakra. However, while this method weakened the destructive power of the ninjutsu, it allowed for much finer control over water. Conversely, if he insisted on completing the nature transformation inside his body, although the power would be greater, the precision of his ninjutsu control would decrease. Once his nature transformation cultivation reached a higher level, he would be able to release ninjutsu without needing to do so from his mouth at all. Just as Yayu was immersed in the improvements brought by water release, Moonlight Jaifeng walked over and gently patted his shoulder. "Yayu, are you really all right?" Snapping out of his contemplation, Yayu quickly replied, "What could be wrong with me?" Hayate Gecko looked around skeptically, then said with a wry smile, "It seems you'll have to apply to use the advanced training grounds from now on. If you keep practicing like this every day, this place will turn into a desert sooner or later." Advanced training grounds. Yayu was clearly stunned. Konoha has such a place. Hayate Gecko frustratingly slapped his forehead. "Right, you're not even a genin yet, so of course you're not qualified to use it." He continued to explain. "Those are training grounds specifically prepared for chunin and jonin. After all, for ninja of that rank, many ninjutsu are not suitable for public practice, and the advanced training grounds provide a confidential space." Upon hearing this, a gleam of excitement flashed in Yayu's eyes. So, there was such a place in the ninja village. Yayu's gaze became fervent. No wonder the regular training grounds were full of genin, their ninjutsu indeed wasn't very impressive. Ninja from clans who truly mastered secret techniques would naturally train in their family dojos. And chunin and jonin had their exclusive training facilities. This made things much easier. Yayu turned to look at Hayate Gecko under the moonlight. "Let's go, that's enough training for tonight. With your current level, the graduation exam will definitely be no problem," Hayate Gecko said as he packed up his tools. Yayu nodded, indicating he understood. Normally at this time, Yayu wouldn't stop so early, that would be a pure waste of time. But today was different. The great sage was still researching water release body flicker technique, and all Yayu could do was periodically refresh his skill status. But now, finally, there was something fun to do. He walked home with Hayate Gecko, parting ways halfway. Yayu scurried back to his room, hung his shinobi blade on the wall, quickly changed into a neat outfit, and grabbed a black cloth to cover his face. This posture, he was practically about to do something big. Looking at himself in the mirror, Yayu nodded with satisfaction. This outfit would definitely work. Thanks to brother Hayate Gecko's guidance, otherwise I wouldn't have known Konoha had such a good place. Yayu rubbed his hands and chuckled. Those jonin wouldn't still be practicing in the dark at night, would they? Hey, tonight, I'm going to use invisibility release to my heart's content. Such an ability, coveted by everyone in the world, would be a complete waste if not used. Tonight, I'm going to. Under the dark and windy night, Yayu activated invisibility release. This technique not only made him disappear without a trace but also eliminated his breathing sounds. Following the information he had gathered from Hayate Gecko earlier, Yayu moved swiftly across the rooftops of Konoha. Along the way, he even encountered several Anbu on night patrol. Patrolling the village in the middle of the night, but Yayu finally witnessed the power of invisibility release. At one point, he stood directly behind an Anbu and the person didn't even notice him. After trying it a few times, Yayu felt even more confident. Even Anbu couldn't catch him, let alone ordinary Jonin. As long as he didn't provoke an elite Jonin, he could definitely walk freely tonight. Arriving at the so-called advanced training grounds, wow! This place was still lit up at night. Jonin usually had a lot of missions, so they naturally made the most of their rest days to train diligently. As long as they could still move, they would come here at night to stretch their muscles. After all, a blade would rust if not sharpened, and these important figures always had to be ready for a fight. Yayu crept into the training ground, keeping low. Invisibility release was truly amazing, it didn't even startle a shadow. This advanced training ground was much more sophisticated than the rough ones outside. It was divided into several rooms, with various fields for water, fire, earth, wind, and lightning elements. Deep in the night, the Ninja Special Training Hall's 7 training rooms were still brightly lit. Yayu looked at the diligently training Jonin and couldn't help but show a look of approval. This place was completely different from the Konoha training grounds outside. Each room was specifically designed for practicing particular ninjutsu. Yayu's gaze lingered on a water release training room, and he deftly slipped in through the window. Inside, the environment simulated a river, and a Jonin stood on a raised rock, forming hand signs. Water release. Water dragon bullet. The water surged skyward, transforming into a giant dragon that lunged at a specially constructed wall. The wall remained motionless, clearly made of special material. Yayu, hiding to the side, wasn't in the mood to study how sturdy the wall was. He was focused intently on every move the Jonin made. It's you. Yayu was excited. I have to perform well tonight. System hint. Parsing progress 4%. 8%. 11%. Yayu was very satisfied with the parsing speed. The system's voice continued. Because the host has mastered water release very well, parsing efficiency has greatly improved. Sure enough, the stronger my strength, the faster the parsing. Yayu thought. New skill obtained. Water release. Water dragon bullet technique. At the same time, the overall calculation progress increased by 5%. This unexpected gain made Yayu even more excited for the opponent's next move. Just then, several hidden weapons shot out from the wall. The Jonin immediately formed hand signs. Water release, water wall. A water wall timely blocked all attacks. Immediately after, he also used water release, surging waves, and the high-pressure water pillar he spewed out was astonishingly powerful, far exceeding the water turbulent wave that Yayu had learned before. New skills obtained. Water release, water wall, water release, surging waves. Getting 3 water release ninjutsu in one go, Yayu really struck it rich tonight. In less than 10 minutes, the calculation progress directly soared by 15%, which was equivalent to saving a full 15 hours. This stealth learning operation was too worthwhile. Although they were all Jonin, continuously using 3 water release ninjutsu was quite strenuous. That person rested for a good while and seemed ready to finish for the day. The other Jonin also began to retreat, and Yayu also planned to go back. Being able to get 3 water release ninjutsu, he had already made a huge profit today. He would continue to stake out tomorrow. Ding! New skill, advanced body technique, has been unlocked. Yayu rubbed his temples and shook his head. Staking out the training ground for 2 consecutive nights, the results were far worse than expected. These Jonin practiced body technique all day long, and water release ninjutsu was nowhere to be seen. Fortunately, last night he encountered a Jonin of the Earth Release type and obtained 2 new moves. Earth Release, Earth Clone Mud Doll. Earth Release, Earth Spike Thrust. Finally, he managed to grasp the knack of Earth Release Chakra by relying on these 2 Earth Release ninjutsu. Today was even more unlucky. There were only 3 Jonin practicing body technique in the entire training ground. forcing him to train the basic body technique taught in school to an advanced level. However, advanced body technique was indeed different from what was taught in school. Once the water release, water instantaneous body technique was parsed, he would add advanced body technique to his skill bar. His physical fitness also needed to be improved quickly. He had been practicing chakra refining technique on autopilot for the past few days, but his chakra growth was slow, only increasing by 30% in 3 days. But now, Yayu's chakra reserves were 620 times that of an ordinary ninja, almost like a mobile-tailed beast. Currently mastered ninjutsu list. Fire release. Fire dragon bullet. Wind release. Gale palm. Earth release. Earth clone mud doll. Earth spike thrust. Water release. Torrential wave. Surging wave technique. Water wall. Water tornado. Possessing the ability to simultaneously control 4 chakra natures, fire, wind, earth, and water, he was definitely considered a top master in the entire ninja world. Plus invisibility release and boil release as his 2 trump cards. Invisibility release combined with water breathing could make him completely disappear. When encountering a strong enemy, he would use boil release to directly confront them, at least ensuring his survival. Water instantaneous body technique is about to be completed. Yayu stared at the flickering countdown on the system interface. There were less than 3 hours left. When water instantaneous body technique was finally successfully deduced, Yayu did not stop but continued to study the abilities of bloodline limit. Now that he had mastered 4 chakra natures, water, earth, wind, and fire, there were suddenly many more combination ninjutsu he could try to develop. The 2 directions that interested Yayu the most were ice release and wood release. The reason for prioritizing these 2 was simple: they both required water release as a foundation. And water release was precisely what Yayu was best at. According to Great Sage's analysis, as long as Yayu trained another nature of chakra to a certain extent, he would be able to successfully develop a new bloodline limit. Having already successfully developed one bloodline limit before, the remaining work could all be handed over to Great Sage, and Yayu didn't have to worry about it at all. So now he was actually struggling with which one to choose first. Although wood release had a great reputation, considering Yayu's mastery of water release, if it could be combined with ice release, the power would definitely be stronger. As for wood release, to truly exert its legendary effects, it required massive chakra support, and even sage mode chakra to achieve. Otherwise, at most, it would only be slightly stronger than Yamato. And Yamato's strength, Yayu could only smile without speaking. As Yayu pondered seriously, time passed little by little. He returned to the familiar training ground as usual, patiently waiting. After the last few hours passed. Calculation complete. Congratulations, host, you have obtained a new skill, water release, water instantaneous body technique. In an instant, all the details about the new ninjutsu flooded into Yayu's mind. He finally understood the subtlety of water instantaneous body technique. By controlling chakra, he could transform his body into water, not only instantly dodging attacks but also moving to other places and rematerializing in the blink of an eye. Isn't this elementalization? Yayu opened his eyes and immediately began to form hand signs to use this new ninjutsu. Because Great Sage had already calculated the jutsu formula in advance, using it felt as smooth as if he had known it from birth. Splash! He completed the hand signs in less than a second, and his body instantly dispersed into water flow. Then the water flow rapidly moved, and in a flash, it rematerialized in another location. Feeling his body transform between water and solid states, Yayu found it incredibly marvelous. Great Sage. During the calculation process, clues related to the water transformation technique were discovered. The host can further deduce this secret technique. Water transformation technique. He didn't expect that during the development of water release, water instantaneous body technique, he would actually discover clues to other secret techniques. While resting under a tree during the day, I suddenly thought that the Hazuka clan's water transformation technique was quite interesting. However, this technique is most afraid of lightning release, so its development value is not great. I'll put it aside for now. Now I want to try something else, ninjutsu nature transformation. Great Sage, can you change the earth clone technique to water clone technique? Great Sage, starting calculation. 10%, 20%, 30%. The speed was really fast, it was done in less than half a minute. Transformation successful. New ninjutsu obtained. Water release, water clone technique. He closed his eyes and felt the effect of the new technique. It was indeed good. The key is that using my water release doesn't consume chakra at all, while other natures consume blue, and the effects are similar. Only a fool wouldn't use water release. Since Earth clone could be changed, then others should be possible too, right? I couldn't help but show an expectant smile. Great Sage. Continuing transformation. Wind release. Beast wave palm right pointing arrow water release, water wave hand. Fire release. Fire dragon technique right pointing arrow water release, water dragon impact bullet. Earth release. Rock thrust right pointing arrow water release, water spike. He gained 3 new water release ninjutsu in one go. The first one unexpectedly turned into the water wave hand that Yamato had used. The water dragon impact bullet, though small in size, was fast and had strong penetration. Water spike was especially suitable for clearing the field. Actually, I'm not particularly fond of water release, it's mainly because the passive skill water breathing is too strong. Just having it active can boost 5 aspects of ability: water release, speed, reaction, physique, and swordsmanship. Moreover, having 2 identical skills active allows for no-cost casting, which is incredibly cost-effective. So, converting other ninjutsu to water release is the most cost-effective, and the effects won't be much worse. Now, all that's left is water clone. It would be even better if I could combine the characteristics of shadow clone to develop a new technique. Great Sage. Do you want to deduce water clone technique? This current clone technique, is the water clone it creates useful? Great Sage. It can probably create a fake body made of water to deceive enemies, but it can't fight. Can't fight. Then what's the use of this water clone? Purely for deception. It's not needed against small fries, and it's useless against powerful people. This kind of ninjutsu is simply a waste of effort. Great Sage. If the host learns the true shadow clone technique, you will be able to deduce a water clone that can fight. Can't you just create it directly? Is this jutsu very difficult? Great Sage. This involves how chakra is distributed, including storage, recall, remote control, and nature transformation, etc. There's too much to calculate, and deduction will take at least a month. I've trained water release to this extent, and creating a water clone still takes so long. Great Sage. This jutsu is mainly dominated by the clone technique, with water release nature transformation accounting for a very small proportion. In short, it means letting Great Sage create shadow clone first, then transform it into water clone, right? That's pretty much what you mean, right? Great Sage. Yes. Alright, no wonder it takes so long. Shadow clone is a forbidden jutsu. It's indeed quite difficult to deduce it from scratch. Instead of waiting a month, I might as well pester Moonlight Jaifeng and have him teach me shadow clone directly. Great Sage. You can try. I'm really impressed. This guy has also learned to be lazy now. I wonder how its repair is coming along. If it's fully functional, deducing a shadow clone shouldn't be difficult, right? Great Sage. Current deduction ability restored to 40%, parsing ability improved, hand sign omission function unlocked 50%. What's going on? Speaking of the devil, you've gotten stronger again. Great Sage. Yes. Then how long will it take to deduce shadow clone now? Great Sage. Estimated 25 days. Impressive, a 10% improvement, saving 5 days. It's progress, I guess. But it's not much stronger. What does hand sign omission mean? Great Sage. Simply put, you won't need to form hand signs to use ninjutsu anymore. No need for hand signs. This is really interesting. Ordinary ninja have to train a certain jutsu to the extreme to barely avoid forming hand signs. This function is convenient. However, the effect is only 50%. Does that mean? Great Sage. Although you still can't completely avoid forming hand signs, it can help the host greatly shorten the hand sign formation time. Once all skills are fully restored, you will no longer need to form hand signs at all. As expected, it's not that easy. But being able to shorten the hand sign formation time is already very good. On the battlefield, every second matters for life and death. Sometimes, a difference of 1 second can decide the outcome. Yayu was not disappointed. Instead, he was eager to try this new function. First, optimize all the water release jutsu I know to their best state. Great Sage. Starting optimization calculation. Estimated time, 40 minutes. All water release skills can be optimized in just 40 minutes, that's efficient. Then let's wait. In a flash, 40 minutes passed. When the first water release skill completed optimization, Yayu was utterly stunned. Perfect optimization meant that this skill could unleash its ultimate power at its current state. Even the most basic, water release, water turbulent wave, after being optimized by Great Sage, had a power that didn't seem like a low-level ninjutsu at all. This should be renamed ocean release. When all water release techniques were optimized, Yayu felt like he had leveled up entirely. Although the essence of the techniques hadn't changed, their power was completely incomparable. Not only did the power surge, but because they reached a perfect state, the hand sign steps required to perform these water release techniques were automatically simplified. Plus Great Sage's new function, hand sign abolition. The number of hand signs was halved again. Now, Yayu only needed to form at most 3 hand signs to use a water release technique. The simplest ones could even be activated by just forming the horse seal. Single seal casting, almost no different from instant cast. How long does it take to form one hand sign? About 0.1 to 0.8 seconds. It depends on the specific situation at the time. Such a short time, truly no different from instant cast. Yayu looked ahead and quickly formed a horse seal with both hands. In an instant, Yayu's entire body exploded into water splashes, then transformed into a water current and shot out rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he rematerialized at another location. Water release. Water instantaneous body technique. This speed was more than twice as fast as before. From disappearing to rematerializing, the entire process took less than half a second. It was incredibly fast. At this speed, I'll probably earn the title of Instantaneous Body Yayu in Konoha. Currently, the only thing that could suppress this technique was probably the Flying Thunder God technique. Although happy, Yayu suddenly thought of a problem. In battle, if he formed hand signs with both hands, he wouldn't be able to use his sword. Great Sage, help me develop one-handed hand signs. Great Sage. Calculating. Estimated time, 3 hours. If he could form hand signs with one hand, then combining swordsmanship and ninjutsu would be the truly perfect combat style. 3 hours of deduction time wasn't long. Yayu didn't wait foolishly, he went home early and lay down. After the deduction was complete, he simply tried the effect of one-handed hand signs. Actually, the change wasn't significant. The power of the ninjutsu didn't change at all, the only difference was being able to form hand signs with one hand. If suddenly used in real combat, it would definitely catch the opponent off guard. It was also a practical skill. During this time, Yayu had been thinking about what ability to develop next. What bothered him the most was the choice between wood release and ice release. The advantages of wood release were self-evident, but he worried about insufficient power. Without understanding Sage Mode or having strong vitality support, the power of wood release was truly limited. Just look at Yamato. While that level of wood release was decent, in Yayu's eyes, it was far from enough. At the very least, it needed to reach the level of the first Hokage. Yamato's level was simply not worth considering. In contrast, ice release is more suitable for Yayu's current system. His water release is already very powerful, and if he adds the ice release bloodline limit, his attack power will reach a new level. Moreover, his method of using ice release would never be as singular as Haku's. The power of ice is boundless. However, while ice release can enhance attack, it does not have the auxiliary functions that wood release possesses. Especially the self-healing ability brought by wood release cells, which is exactly what Yayu needs. In terms of combat methods, he already has sword techniques, ninjutsu, and no-cost water release, which are already very comprehensive. Boil release is for burst damage, and invisibility release excels at surprise attacks. What he lacks most now are auxiliary abilities, such as perception and healing. Perception is not too urgent. Under accelerated thought, his 5 senses already far exceed those of ordinary people. Although he cannot directly perceive chakra, he is exceptionally sensitive to changes in his surroundings. He can cope for now. But healing ability is different. Wait, healing doesn't necessarily have to rely on wood release. Great Sage, didn't you mention the water transformation technique secret art before? Great Sage, shall we begin the deduction now? Although the water transformation technique cannot directly increase healing power, it can make Yayu immune to physical damage, which is equivalent to gaining an invincible state, and that is much stronger than simple healing. The great sage reminded, be aware, the water transformation technique has a special effect. Once mastered, you will unconsciously transform into a water form, which will interfere with the performance of other bloodline limit abilities. Automatically turn into water. You mean when I get hit, I'll turn into water automatically, right? But why would that affect bloodline limits? The great sage explained, once your entire body turns into water, if you activate boil release, peerless strength, the high temperature will melt you, and you might even die. Quote. Yayu was dumbfounded, what is this? A ninjutsu I developed myself ends up killing me. It seems this move is useless. To say it's completely useless, this move allows you to be immune to physical attacks like a Logia type, which is incredibly powerful in the world of Hokage. But the problem is that it hinders the use of other bloodline limit abilities, which, for Yayu, is not very cost-effective. After all, he will definitely master more bloodline limits in the future. What a pity, I originally wanted to try it, after all, it's a powerful secret art. The great sage suggested, actually, there are other ways. Don't you want self-healing ability? If you add the water transformation characteristic, the healing effect will be even stronger. You mean like the water transformation palm sage technique that Suigetsu uses in Boruto? Exactly, but you just said water transformation would affect bloodline limits. The great sage continued to explain, you can add a restriction, changing it to partial water transformation. Set it to only trigger under specific conditions, and then revert to the original state after use. Simply put, it's turning a passive skill into an active skill. Yayu thought for a moment, that's not bad either. Although it can't grant immunity to attacks, being able to recover quickly after being injured is also very practical. Wait, what about the effect of this palm sage technique you mentioned? The great sage replied, after changing it to partial water transformation, the injured area can turn into water, fill the gap with chakra, and then revert to solid form. The effect is dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than ordinary palm sage technique. There's such a thing. This is much faster than using chakra to regenerate cells. As expected of the great sage, he always has many ideas. Great sage. Smug face. If it can really be developed, then I should prioritize developing ice release over wood release. Since there are other ways to compensate for the lack of auxiliary abilities, the research on wood release can be put on hold for now. He will research wood release after learning Sage Mode, only then can its true power be unleashed. Currently, the most important thing is to improve his practical combat ability. In comparison, the development of ice release is more urgent than wood release. Great Sage reminded, the host has not yet mastered any medical healing type skills. It is estimated that it will take 1 month to complete the deduction of the water transformation palm sage technique. Developing a healing ninjutsu takes that long. Yayu couldn't help but frown. Great Sage added, if the host acquires the palm sage technique skill, the deduction time can be shortened to about 3 days. I see, most of the time is spent on deducing the palm sage technique. Just say you want the palm sage technique. That's not difficult. He can get it by going to Konoha Hospital. Thinking of this, Yayu's lips curved slightly upward. Since the plan has changed, the skill configuration also needs to be readjusted. Permanent Skill 1. Chakra Refining Technique. He must continuously increase his chakra. Permanent Skill 2. Basic Illusion Vision Technique. The enhancement of mental power cannot stop. Permanent Skill 3. Advanced Taijutsu. The effects brought by taijutsu are now more obvious, and Yayu's physical quality still needs further improvement. Permanent Skills 4 to 5. Wind Release. To develop ice release, he must first master wind release. Permanent Skills 6 to 7. Water Breathing Sword Technique. The next day was coincidentally the weekend. Although he didn't have school, Yayu still woke up early. Today he was going to Konoha Hospital. It shouldn't be difficult to infiltrate the hospital with invisibility release and obtain palm sage technique. Konoha Hospital is not a top secret location. The guards are just a few chunin, which is not a problem at all. After a simple breakfast, Yayu went straight to Konoha Hospital. But what he didn't expect was that before he even entered the hospital gate, he saw Hinata sleeping on a bench in the small park outside the entrance. Why was she sleeping here so early on a weekend? Yayu found it a bit strange. Hinata, Seeing no response, Yayu gently patted her shoulder. Hinata groggily opened her eyes, and when she looked up, she saw Yayu very close to her. Quote exclamation mark quote. She suddenly stood up, almost bumping into Yayu. Fortunately, Yayu reacted quickly and dodged in time. If you keep sleeping like this, your forehead will get sunburned. You're such a clumsy girl. Do you have to be so nervous? Hinata, why are you napping by the roadside in the morning? I'm fine. The girl secretly glanced at Yayu's face. Her cheeks suddenly flushed. Yayu was momentarily stunned by this sight. Hinata actually blushes when she sees me. I never noticed that before. But right now, there's something else to be concerned about. Why was the Hyuga clan's eldest daughter huddled outside the hospital so early in the morning? Seeing how deeply she was sleeping just now, could it be? You weren't here all night, were you? Hinata's hands were neatly folded on her lap. Her back was ramrod straight, like a model student. This timid appearance made Yayu unable to help but laugh. Have I become some kind of terrifying person? If you don't want to say, then don't. No. The girl suddenly turned her head, her ear tips completely red. Tell me, why are you wandering the streets? I had an argument with father. Hinata whispered, I didn't know where to go, so I just walked here. Yayu immediately understood. As the eldest daughter of the main family, she was unwilling to train in martial arts. But how could clan leader Hiyashi allow his heir to be like this? They must have had another falling out over this matter. Listen, Hinata, didn't Lady Tsunade prove it too? The strongest medical ninja can also possess strength comparable to the Hokage. The girl's eyes suddenly lit up. Isn't this exactly what she was thinking? Become strong in your own way, and make everyone speechless. Yayu smiled and ruffled her hair. You can definitely do it. Yayu stood up, feeling strange himself. Why had he talked so much with Hinata today? If it were his old self, he definitely wouldn't have bothered with such trivial matters. Perhaps it was because he had gotten stronger recently. Yayu felt his whole person had become more confident. Talking to characters from the original story no longer made him as nervous as before. He turned to leave. Yayu, Hinata suddenly called out to him. Yayu looked back. Hinata lowered her head, her fingers constantly twisting the hem of her clothes. 9 years ago, thank you. 9 years ago. Yayu didn't react for a moment, then suddenly remembered the scene from that day. It was when Hinata was being bullied by a few children in the original story, though those children hadn't actually laid a hand on her yet. At that time, he had just transmigrated and was feeling depressed about having nothing, so when he saw this, he directly rushed over and beat up those children. Although he was only 3 years old at the time, he had an adult's mind, so dealing with a few children was no problem at all. He left after the fight, without even saying much to Hinata. If Hinata hadn't brought it up today, he would have almost forgotten about it. Oh, right, it seemed Naruto wasn't there at the time. He had thought Naruto would come later. Oh, that matter, it's nothing big. Yayu waved his hand and was about to leave. Hinata seemed to want to say something else, but he had already jumped onto the rooftop and disappeared. Watching Yayu's receding figure, Hinata's lips curved slightly upward. Yayu, you look more confident now, that's good. Inside the hospital, Yayu walked in casually, completely hidden, even his presence meticulously concealed. He happened to encounter a medical ninja about to perform surgery. At such a time, palm sage technique would definitely be used. He quietly slipped into the operating room, waiting to observe the medical ninja's technique. The surgery began, but the first thing analyzed was not palm sage technique. Analysis complete. New skill acquired. Chakra scalpel. Skill acquired. Chakra precise control. Not only did he learn a practical ninjutsu, but he also improved his chakra manipulation ability. Very good. The medical ninja's surgical process was similar to ordinary surgery, just with the added convenience of chakra. The surgery quickly concluded, and the medical ninja used palm sage technique to heal the wound. New skill acquired. Palm sage technique. Chakra nature transformation. Yang acquired. Yang release chakra, derived from life energy, has healing effects. Yayu's lips curved into a smile, secretly delighted. He could finally begin researching the water healing secret art. He had originally only intended to learn medical ninjutsu, but he didn't expect such an unexpected gain. After leaving Konoha Hospital, Yayu quickly walked towards his training ground. As he walked, he looked at the chakra light blade he easily formed in his hand. This chakra light blade was incredibly sharp, definitely a great weapon in actual combat. If he could superimpose water release nature transformation, what kind of techniques would it evolve into? Intelligent brain. Estimated deduction time 5 hours. This technique requires extremely high chakra manipulation ability. It is recommended to improve manipulation precision to shorten the deduction time. It can be completed in 5 hours, that's quite efficient. However, the most important thing right now is to first develop the water healing secret art. Yayu cleared water rhythm and wind release ninjutsu from his skill slots. He freed up 4 skill slots and filled them all with medical ninjutsu. This configuration not only enhanced healing effects but also improved chakra control and yang release conversion efficiency. It was very suitable for laying the foundation for future development. After the intelligent brain completed its in-depth analysis of medical ninjutsu, Yayu set it to automatically run once every 30 seconds. All 4 skill slots operated simultaneously. Within just 1 hour, the effect of medical ninjutsu increased tenfold. His medical skill level was now comparable to Konoha's top medical ninja. Intelligent brain, initiate technique fusion deduction. Deduction initiated, estimated completion time, 5 hours. As the skill slots continued to operate, the deduction progress became faster and faster. The deduction that was originally estimated to take 5 hours was completed in just 1 hour. Deduction complete. New secret technique acquired. Water healing regeneration jutsu. Effect description. Can turn wounds into liquid to accelerate healing, and can also transform one's own cells into healing water to help others. The healing effect is dozens of times stronger than ordinary medical ninjutsu. The ninjutsu was successfully developed. Yayu was very satisfied with the effect. What surprised him even more was that the key to strengthening Palm Sage technique turned out to be the breakthrough in yang release. Yang release is yang release, and yang power is yang power, these cannot be simply equated with life force. Yayu clearly felt the enhancement of the yang release nature, but even if the nature became stronger, it could not be directly converted into life energy. This was a bit of a pity, but the growth of life force naturally depends on the improvement of physical quality. There's no need to rush too much. After all, advanced taijutsu has always been in the passive skill slot. Possessing powerful life force is only a matter of time. After the new ninjutsu was successfully developed, Yayu performed a simple test. He used a kunai to cut a wound on his arm. Then he activated Water Transformation Palm Sage Technique, a move that doesn't require hand seals at all. The characteristic of instant activation should be the result of Great Sage integrating the Water Transformation Secret Jutsu. This turned this Palm Sage technique into a no-hand seal technique. The wound instantly turned into water and began to flow rapidly. Accompanied by the sound of bubbling water, after the water mist dissipated, his arm had completely recovered. The healing speed was astonishing, probably close to the nine-tailed Jinchuriki's self-healing ability. As long as he continues to refine this move, the effect will definitely get better and better. But unexpectedly, it can't achieve zero consumption. He originally thought that Water Transformation Palm Sage technique belonged to water release, and he could use it continuously relying on the water release's talent of not consuming chakra. In fact, the healing effect comes from the nature transformation of yang release, so this move is not purely water release. To be precise, it is a composite ninjutsu primarily based on water release, with added yang release characteristics. In other words, it does consume chakra when used. Fortunately, Yayu's current chakra reserves are sufficient to handle such minor injuries. Even fatal injuries could be healed 5 or 6 times. This is without recovering chakra. Although it can't be completely consumption-free, the water release part not requiring consumption is already very practical. Finally, I have a trump card for survival. Next, it's time to research how to combine water release and chakra scalpel. Great Sage. Beginning calculation. Estimated time, 3 hours. Yayu placed the chakra shuriken into the passive skill slot, replacing the 4 Palm Sage technique slots with chakra scalpel. It runs once every 50 seconds, and the calculation time shortens each time. After about an hour of deduction, the new move was finally completed. Congratulations to the host for learning a new skill, Water Release, Raging Water Blade. Yayu stared at the humming kunai in his hand, grinning from ear to ear. This raging water blade move was truly amazing. It didn't require any hand seals. With a flick of his wrist, the kunai was enveloped in a layer of water film, and with a swish, it sliced a large tree in half. The cut of the tree stump was smoother than a mirror, with water droplets circling along the tree rings. If only I could turn my whole body into water. He kicked the remaining half of the tree trunk. If the water transformation technique was perfected, he would be a walking great blade, able to slice enemies into sashimi with a flick of his finger. Unfortunately, for now, he could only settle for less, at least make a clone, right? Thinking of this, he ran off towards the west side of the village. Moonlight Jaifeng's house door was locked, and the uncle selling dango next door winked and said, "That kid must have gone into the forest with the Azuki girl again." Konoha love. Yayu dashed into the park and frantically looked around. Sure enough, he found Moonlight Jaifeng on a lush green lawn. This guy was laying out a picnic mat with his girlfriend, Yugao Azuki, and lying under the sun, looking quite content. Yayu's lips curled into a smile as he stealthily approached. "Yugao, when do you think we can get married?" Hayate Gecko suddenly asked. Yugao, who had been spacing out, snapped back to reality upon hearing this. "Do you have enough savings?" As the two were discussing important life matters, they were startled by Yayu suddenly appearing. Big brother Hayate Gecko. Yayu bent down and leaned in front of Hayate Gecko, startling the lying Hayate Gecko into sitting up in a hurry. "Yayu, what are you doing here?" Yugao, sitting nearby, felt a little embarrassed, as a kid had just seen her and her boyfriend being affectionate. However, upon hearing the name, Yayu, she immediately perked up. "Is this the genius kid you told me about? He's quite handsome, he'll definitely be a great looker in the future." Yayu hadn't expected Hayate Gecko's girlfriend to be so beautiful and secretly grumbled that Hayate Gecko was really lucky. "Hello, I'm Yugao Azuki." Yugao extended her hand proactively. "I often hear Hayate Gecko talk about you." Yayu politely shook her hand, then said to Hayate Gecko, "Sorry to interrupt your date, but I have something I'd like to ask big brother Hayate Gecko for help with." Hayate Gecko felt strange. Even though the other person was just a kid, why did he feel like he was caught in an early relationship? "It's okay, you two talk." Yugao smiled and waved her hand. Hayate Gecko looked at Yayu suspiciously. "Are you in trouble?" He thought the kid had caused mischief. "No." Yayu shook his head. "I want to learn the shadow clone technique from big brother Hayate Gecko." Shadow clone. Even Yugao was stunned. Yayu should still be attending the ninja school at his age, right? Why would he suddenly want to learn such an advanced ninjutsu? "No." Hayate Gecko refused without hesitation. "You're not even a genin yet, this jutsu is too dangerous. Wait until you graduate from the ninja school and become a chunin, it won't be too late to learn it then." As expected, he was rejected. Yayu had been mentally prepared. However, he didn't come unprepared. Yayu leaned close to Hayate Gecko's ear and whispered, "Big brother Hayate Gecko, if you don't teach me, I'll tell Sister Yugao about you doing bad things in the dark using invisibility release." At that time, Hayate Gecko suddenly stood up and glared at Yayu. "Brat, you dare to threaten me?" Yugao was also stunned upon hearing this. Had things escalated to such a point between clan members? This young man named Yayu dared to threaten Hayate Gecko. "Hayate Gecko, what did he say?" "Threaten?" Yugao asked nervously. Hayate Gecko immediately laughed. "It's nothing, this kid is just joking with me." Yayu smiled triumphantly like a cat that had stolen a fish. Hayate Gecko sighed. "Shadow clone isn't something you can just learn casually, unless your ninjutsu talent is as good as your swordsmanship. You don't have to worry about that," Yayu said confidently. "Even if I can't learn it, you just need to demonstrate it a few more times." These words piqued Hayate Gecko's interest, and Yugao couldn't help but watch the two. In Yayu's own training ground, Hayate Gecko shook his head as he looked at the crooked trees. "There was a forest here last time I came." Yayu rubbed the back of his head and smiled awkwardly. "Testing ninjutsu always needed a target, right? Let's start teaching you shadow clone." Before making the hand seals, Hayate Gecko specifically glanced at Yugao, his eyes signaling, this is just a formality to make him retreat in the face of difficulty. With two soft thuds, white smoke appeared, revealing two Hayate Geckos. Yayu stared at the slowly dissipating smoke, and a mechanical voice sounded in his mind. Analysis complete. New skill shadow clone technique has been recorded. How was it? Do you want to see it again? Hayate Gecko was about to make the hand seals again, but Yayu stopped him. No need, thank you, big brother Hayate Gecko. Under their surprised gazes, Yayu suddenly handed over a cloth bag. This is for you, I don't need it right now anyway. This is. Hayate Gecko opened the cloth bag, it was full of money. Yayu, this money is. Hayate Gecko had no idea he would receive such a gift. Yugao was also stunned. The bulging purse was filled with large denomination banknotes, almost enough for a down payment on a house. Didn't you just talk about saving money for the wedding? Yayu scratched his head and chuckled. These are all my parents' savings, Uncle Masano said they were for me to marry a wife. But I'm still young, big brother Hayate Gecko, you can take them for now in an emergency. You can just slowly pay me back after your wedding. These words stunned Hayate Gecko. Even Yugao hadn't expected that the usually carefree Yayu would. Yayu, really? Hayate Gecko's voice was a little tight, and it took him a while to utter a few words. Oh, don't dilly-dally. Yayu waved his hand impatiently. Didn't we agree to prepare for the graduation exam? As soon as he heard the words, graduation exam, Hayate Gecko swallowed back what he was about to say. Although Yayu's talent was definitely not a problem, with that swordsmanship, he could have been a ninja long ago. As a senior, he still had to maintain some dignity. He couldn't say something like, you'll definitely pass. Once you get your ninja license, Hayate Gecko patted his shoulder, we'll go eat barbecue to celebrate. After the two walked away, Yayu sat directly on a stone in the training ground. I've learned Shadow Clone. How long will water releases water clone take? Great Sage. Estimated 6 hours. That's acceptable. If I put Shadow Clone in the passive skill slot. Start the deduction now. While the system was calculating, Yayu felt the flow of chakra in his palm. After a day of idle training, even his fingertips could now cut through falling leaves. It's time to try Ice Release Fusion. But now with Great Sage's help, it's much safer than fumbling around on his own. An hour later, the young man made the snake hand seal with one hand. **** 125***. Suddenly, a stream of water appeared out of thin air, quickly condensing into Yayu's likeness. Water release. Water clone technique, successfully developed. This water clone was a brand new version deduced by Great Sage combining the shadow clone ability, and its effect was completely different from a normal water clone. Water release. Water clone. Possesses 20% of the host's strength, carries a small amount of chakra, can cast water release ninjutsu, other elemental releases cannot be used, and its strength increases by 10% when near a water source. This was much stronger than the original water clone in the Naruto world. A normal water clone could only exert 10% of the main body's strength, couldn't release ninjutsu, and had to be maintained near a water source. However, Yayu's water clone was different, it could be used even without water nearby and had no distance limit. The clone stood in front of Yayu, its arm suddenly turned into liquid, forming a water whip, and it lashed out fiercely. Crack! The whip shadow flashed, and the tree trunk was instantly split. The power is sufficient, and the clone can fight. Swish! The clone moved quickly, its speed very agile, almost reaching the level of a Chunin's body flicker technique. Such performance relying solely on burst power indicated that its overall combat strength was already close to Jonin level. However, its durability still needed to be tested. If it dispersed with one hit, then it wasn't strong enough. Yayu gently kicked with his foot, and the clone was immediately kicked several meters away. Great Sage. Due to the host's extremely strong water release nature transformation, the water clone possesses high resilience and can withstand a certain intensity of attacks, but it cannot withstand fatal injuries and cannot use water body flicker and water transformation palm sage technique. The clone stabilized itself again, and Yayu nodded in satisfaction. Although there were some limitations, the overall effect was already very good. Water clone solved. Next, let's research Shadow Clone. If it can be combined with the skill bar, training efficiency should increase a lot, right? Great Sage. Number. Shadow Clone's training results will not be transferred to the main body. Won't transfer. Why? Great Sage. Limited by the skill bar. So that's how it is. Although he couldn't slack off with Shadow Clone, it didn't matter. Compared to the effect of the clone, the skill bar's enhancement was the real anomaly, there was nothing to regret. Then let's switch to developing ice release now. My wind release nature transformation should be qualified by now, right? Great Sage. Yes. Start calculation. Start. Okay, I understand. Development of ice release secret jutsu. With this ability, Yayu's strength could advance another level. Adding his original invisibility release and boil release, he now possessed 3 bloodline limits. Suddenly, an idea surfaced in his mind. What would happen if boil release and ice release were combined? The more he thought about it, the more interesting it seemed. However, Great Sage was currently busy calculating data and had no time to respond to him. According to the calculations, completing this deduction would take at least 30 hours. Only 30 hours, that's not too long, Yayu thought. During this time, he could properly practice his combat skills. Boom! A loud sound immediately echoed in the training ground. At the same time, in the Hokage's office, 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi was reviewing the ninja school's graduation list. This batch of children will graduate soon. The team assignments need to be arranged carefully. These children are about to graduate, so the team assignments need to be arranged properly. There has never been a rule in the Moonlight family that we must offer our family's secret techniques to the village. Stop arguing, stop pretending, Hokage. All the secret techniques of Konoha's great and small clans are recorded here. Yet now you're giving that boy special treatment. Do you really think so highly of him? Don't let us end up with another White Fang. No matter how Danzo ranted, the 3rd Hokage remained unperturbed. If Gecko Yayu were to hand over his water-breathing sword technique, Danzo would immediately get his hands on it. It wasn't that Hiruzen couldn't protect these secret techniques, Danzo also had the authority to view them. Hiruzen's refusal to let Gecko Yayu hand over the sword technique was precisely to prevent Danzo from spreading this sword style to his root organization. Hiruzen himself had personally studied Gecko Yayu's sword style. Mastering this technique would significantly enhance combat ability. A Chunin could even rival the strength of a Jonin. Hiruzen would never easily hand over such a power-enhancing method to Danzo. Enough, Danzo, you won't get the Moonlight Clan's water-breathing technique. Furthermore, this is a sword technique, not ninjutsu. Seeing Hiruzen deliberately obstruct him, Danzo's expression on his face twisted slightly. Although most of his face was covered by bandages, the 3rd Hokage couldn't see his cold expression. He picked up 3 files. Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, and Moonlight Yayu. Looking at Naruto's file, the 3rd Hokage couldn't help but sigh. This child had a special background, but his strength was only average. Is it because the 9-tailed seal affected his growth? As he was thinking, the office door suddenly burst open. What exactly are your intentions? The newcomer directly questioned. The only person in all of Konoha who dared to speak to the Hokage like that was Danzo. What do you want to say? The 3rd Hokage calmly continued to smoke his pipe. Do I need to explain? Danzo closed the door, looking at him coldly. In recent years, Danzo had increasingly disregarded him, perhaps because he was truly getting old. Why aren't you making that Moonlight family boy hand over the water-breathing sword technique to the village? Danzo asked bluntly. The 3rd Hokage sneered. Konoha's ninja. But this sword technique transcends ninjutsu itself. It doesn't require hand seals, only sword techniques to guide the chakra's elemental transformation. Even the samurai of the Land of Iron cannot reach this level. This is not an ordinary sword technique, Hokage-sama. Even so, I will not let him hand it over. Hiruzen replied calmly. Faced with such determination, Danzo sneered. You are the Hokage, your decision. He turned and left the office, but both knew he would not give up so easily. Walking out of the room, Danzo looked back, as if he could see through the door. You are the Hokage, but someone like you is not fit to lead Konoha. He had originally thought the 3rd Hokage would, as usual, confiscate Yayu's technique and preserve it to prevent the Moonlight Clan from losing it. This was the standard practice to prevent the loss of village secret techniques. However, to his surprise, the 3rd Hokage had changed, refusing to seal away this powerful technique. Fine, 3rd Hokage, since you won't take it, I'll just have to handle it myself. Danzo disappeared into the shadows. Back in his office, the 3rd Hokage reopened Yayu's file. It seems your talent is truly extraordinary, boy, even that old fox Danzo is provoked by you. Thinking this, the 3rd Hokage looked at the other 2 files on the desk. stacked the 3 documents together, and placed them aside. That old man definitely won't give up, so I need to find someone important enough to keep an eye on these 3. A suitable candidate came to Hiruzen's mind. Meanwhile, Yayu, who had just returned home, immediately dove into his futon and fell asleep contentedly. The effect of water release combined with the water-breathing sword technique far exceeded his expectations, and the practical combat effectiveness of his ninja body technique greatly surprised him. If the great sage wasn't currently analyzing ice release, he would have immediately asked it to research new moves combining ninjutsu and sword techniques. The analysis of ice release still required 30 hours. At the current pace, he would obtain the 3rd bloodline limit by tomorrow morning. He had already mastered invisibility release and boil release, and once ice release was acquired, he could continue to unlock other bloodline limits. After the passive skill slots were readjusted. Passive skill 1 to 3, chakra cultivation. Passive skill 4, advanced body technique. Passive skill 5, basic visual genjutsu. Passive skill 6 to 7, water breathing sword technique. Thinking about having to go to the ninja school again tomorrow, Yayu yawned. The next morning, feeling his chakra was a bit more abundant than before, Yayu looked at himself in the mirror. Under the effect of advanced body technique, his physique had noticeably changed overnight. Although young, the muscle lines on his abdomen were already quite clear. The effect was more than 3 times that of ordinary body technique. As soon as he walked into the classroom and greeted Ino, he suddenly saw Hinata walking towards him. Yayu-kun, I wish you good luck on your exam tomorrow. Thanks, Yayu instinctively replied, then his eyes widened. Wait, what exam? Hey, you didn't forget the graduation exam, did you? Naruto jumped out from the side. Seeing Yayu's confused expression, he couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha ha, someone's even more muddled than me. Now I can rest easy. You can't even remember the exam time, it seems you're also cramming at the last minute. Naruto patted Yayu's shoulder, grinning, now I feel much better. Naruto had a look of amusement on his face, and Yayu gave him an exasperated look. The old Yayu would have been anxious by now, but it was different now. What preparation was needed for the 3 basic jutsu exam? Moreover, chakra was no longer an issue. Although he couldn't claim to be the best in the ninja world, his chakra reserves were 7 or 8 times more than Naruto's, so what was there to worry about? Even if I cram at the last minute, I'll pass, but you, Naruto. Naruto, who was happily laughing, suddenly froze. Hearing Yayu speak with such confidence, did he really have full assurance? Wouldn't that make him the only one who was unsure? Naruto's expression instantly fell. Shikamaru lay on his desk, shaking his head and sighing. Had these people forgotten that Yayu had single-handedly taken down hundreds of ninja? He casually denied it, and they actually believed him. They were too easily fooled. Ino clasped her hands, her eyes sparkling. It's good that Yayu-kun is confident. We'll become ninja together and go on missions together then. Teaming up was fine, but Yayu felt they were unlikely to be assigned to the same team. After all, the Ino-Shika-Cho combination had never changed, and a small family like the Moonlight family probably wouldn't get a chance to be grouped with others from the protagonist team. After school, although Yayu was a bit confused about the exam being moved up, he didn't pay too much attention to it. For him, the graduation exam was nothing. Just as he was about to go home and continue training, Naruto, surprisingly, came to find him. Usually, they took different routes home after school. One lived in the apartment complex to the south, the other in the family compound to the north. Yayu. Naruto grabbed him and pulled him along. Help me. You're going the wrong way, my house is over there. Yayu pointed in the opposite direction. Naruto dragged him towards Ichiraku Ramen. I'll tell you on the way. Looking at the steaming, richly topped ramen in front of him, Yayu raised an eyebrow. Naruto, who never treated anyone, was actually treating him today. Is Naruto treating me to ramen? It was clear that Ichiraku-san took special care of Naruto. I'm going to eat. Naruto excitedly looked at the super-sized bowl of ramen in front of him. Yayu looked at the steaming ramen in front of him. It did smell very good. In the ninja world, everyone believed that ninja who didn't eat ramen weren't strong enough. Only after eating Ichiraku's ramen could one be considered a true master. This was truly ramen for the strong. Yayu smiled, picked up his chopsticks, and ate while wondering why Naruto was so unusual today. Is he trying to get closer to me? Our relationship is usually okay, not best friends, but we can be considered friends. Just say what's on your mind, Naruto, I'll help you if I can. Yayu said softly. Ichiraku-san and Ayame, who were pretending to be busy, both pricked up their ears. Naruto stopped eating heartily when he heard this, and looked at Yayu gratefully. Thank you. Actually, tomorrow's graduation exam has me a bit worried. Although you said you're very confident, I've noticed you've changed a lot recently, like you suddenly got stronger. Yayu immediately understood what he meant. The method to get stronger is hard to explain, but if it's just to pass tomorrow's exam, I can help you. The first half of the sentence made Naruto a little disappointed, thinking Yayu was going to hide something, but the second half made his eyes light up. Really? Yayu picked up his bowl. Consider it my treat for the ramen. Boss, give him another bowl, with extra toppings. Ichiraku-san was about to agree when Yayu quickly stopped him. That's enough, one bowl is fine, one don't eat much. Just then, a spoonful of toppings reached over, and Ichiraku-san showed a bright smile. Then let me add some toppings for you. This is a special gift for new customers. Was it really only because he was a new customer? Yayu glanced at Naruto, thinking this must be the treatment for a protagonist, to have the ramen master take such care of him. However, thinking about Naruto's childhood experiences, it wasn't so strange. Eat quickly, Yayu urged, the exam is tomorrow, so we need to practice hard tonight. At the mention of the exam, Naruto immediately sped up, finishing the super-sized bowl of ramen in a few gulps. Late at night, the two arrived at a secluded park by a lake and began their special training. Excerpt from the Naruto fanfiction, Shadow Era. Wow, that's amazing. Naruto danced with excitement, his eyes shining as he looked at Yayu. Big brother Yayu, quickly teach me how to do it. Yayu glanced at the blonde boy. Tomorrow's graduation exam will only test one of the 3 basic jutsu, it's very simple. 3 basic jutsu. Naruto scratched his head, really? Why would I lie to you? I'm doomed. I can handle transformation jutsu and substitution jutsu, but clone technique, I completely. Naruto's face instantly drooped. Yayu sneered. So tonight, you must practice your clone technique to be even stronger than the exam requires. Stronger than the exam. Naruto stood there with his mouth agape, stunned. Can that be done? I'll just teach you a new ninjutsu. Yayu extended a finger. Just one ninjutsu. That's simple. This is called shadow clone technique. Speaking of shadow clone, in the original work, Naruto learned multiple shadow clone jutsu. To put it simply, it's about the number of clones. Many clones are called multiple, while fewer are the regular version. Just like Yayu's water clones, if he made many, it could also be called multiple water clones. Did you remember the hand seals? Do you understand the chakra flow? Yayu suddenly remembered and added, oh, by the way, try to make as many clones as possible when using this technique. Naruto clenched his fists, excitedly jumping up and down. Because of the Nine-Tailed's interference within him, Naruto had always had poor chakra control. Precise manipulation was impossible, but rough usage was just right. Most people would have exhausted their chakra using it this way, but Naruto had an absurd amount of chakra, plus his immortal body, so he had nothing to worry about. Watch me. Naruto took a deep breath, multiple shadow clone jutsu. With a boom, the entire lakeside was instantly enveloped in white smoke. Naruto himself was astonished, having created over 1,000 clones on his first attempt. 1 second, 2 seconds, after a full dozen seconds of stunned, Naruto suddenly jumped up, crying and laughing at Yayu. Yayu big brother. You are amazing. This move is simply invincible. Tomorrow's exam is stable. After he finished speaking, Naruto quickly dismissed his shadow clones, so excited he was dancing, and rushed forward to hug Yayu tightly. Yayu, you are truly a good person. Didn't you also treat me to ramen? Consider this a return gift. Tomorrow I'll treat you again. Mid-sentence, Naruto suddenly faltered, touching his empty wallet with a worried expression. It seemed his living expenses for the month would all be spent. Yayu chuckled, no need. After tomorrow's exam, I want to clean my room, and I can't do it alone. Can you help me? Leave it to me. Seeing Naruto agree so readily, Yayu secretly calculated, tonight, he would have to make his house a bit messier first. As the two were talking, Yayu's ear suddenly twitched. Swish! A black shadow flashed past. The speed was extremely fast. Yayu instinctively leapt backward, just barely dodging the kunai swung at him. He retreated a few steps to steady himself, only then realizing that Naruto had already passed out and was being carried on the black-clad person's shoulder. The sound of hand signs being formed rang out, and the black-clad person used body flicker technique again. Dressed in black clothes and pants, with a mask covering his face, this attire clearly indicated he was after the nine-tailed Jinchuriki. But this was Konoha village. This part wasn't in the original story at all. Before he could think further, Yayu quickly formed hand signs with his right hand. Water release. Water instantaneous body technique. His body instantly transformed into countless streams of water, soaring into the air and rapidly moving between the rooftops. When he reformed, he saw the robber looking back at him in surprise, evidently not expecting this young man to possess a water release body flicker technique. The two engaged in a chase on the rooftops. The black-clad person continuously used body flicker to flee towards outside the village, but Yayu's water instantaneous body technique was even faster. Put him down. Just as he was about to catch up, suddenly, clang, clang, two shuriken blocked his path. Yayu had no choice but to reveal himself, and looking back, two more ninja appeared. The surrounding eaves were filled with hidden weapons. What was the origin of these people? Daring to target the nine-tailed on Konoha's territory, they probably wouldn't live long, would they? Strange, why were there no Anbu members around? How could the department's people appear here? Two black-clad individuals, gripping kunai, charged directly at Yayu. Yayu hadn't brought Zangetsu with him today. After all, he was just going to ninja school for classes, so why bring such a long sword? He pulled out a kunai from his ninja tool pouch and simultaneously unleashed water release, raging water blade. Clear water flowed like it had a life of its own, coiling around the blade of the kunai. Seeing Yayu use this move, the two attackers exchanged glances. They suddenly accelerated, one in front and one behind, charging towards Yayu. The one in front had just thrust his kunai towards Yayu's neck when he heard a clang. His own weapon had been cleanly severed at the hilt. Yayu quickly formed hand signs with one hand. Water release. Water instantaneous body technique. His entire body instantly transformed into a puddle of water, vanishing without a trace. The two enemies froze, frantically turning to search. Just then, PFF'd. The neck of the one behind suddenly split open, and blood gushed out. The person in front looked back at the horrific sight of his companion, his pupils sharply contracting. But before he could react, a bone-chilling coldness enveloped his entire body. Yayu's figure appeared like a phantom behind him. The kunai, shimmering with water, precisely pierced his throat. The night is my territory. Dare to fight me at night. You must be tired of living. Under the cover of water instantaneous body technique, Yayu simultaneously activated invisibility release. It looked as if he had vanished into water, but in reality, he had instantly moved beside the other enemy. In just 2 seconds, both were dead. He had no time to look at the corpses. Narrowing his eyes and gazing into the distance, Naruto had already been taken far away. Trying to escape, just as he was about to give chase, he suddenly sensed a ninja speeding towards him from another direction. Wearing a mask, it was Anbu. Since the Anbu had arrived, he didn't need to worry about these two corpses. Water release. Water instantaneous body technique. As soon as the Anbu arrived, they saw a figure flash past, instantly exploding into countless streams of water, rushing towards outside the village at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, he had already flown 100 meters away. What kind of movement technique is that? When the Anbu squad arrived at the battle scene, 2 corpses lay on the rooftop, their throats precisely slit. Even the experienced Anbu were shocked. What a powerful ninjutsu. One strike, fatal and clean. Who was that person just now? The Anbu captain knelt down to examine the corpses, his brows furrowing deeper beneath his mask. The moment the 2 ninja removed their masks, the surrounding air seemed to solidify. They're not from our Konoha. They're ninja from other villages. Since they weren't from their own village, then the one who killed these 2 must have been a Konoha ninja. Could it have been someone from another village? Report to Hokage-sama immediately. Bring these 2 guys' corpses back, the rest of you follow me and continue the pursuit. Pursue. Where to pursue? That person had clearly already fled the village. In that instant, that person's body suddenly turned into a puddle of water and rushed towards outside the village. To be able to use water release to such an extent, no matter which village he was from, his mastery of water release alone was already extremely impressive. His strength was probably close to cage level. Nevertheless, as elite Anbu ninja, they would not give up easily. This Anbu squad immediately split into two groups. One stayed at the scene to contact the Hokage, and the other continued the pursuit. Yayu, who had already left Konoha at this time, did not continue to use water instantaneous body technique, but instead used the ordinary body flicker technique, combined with the invisibility effect of invisibility release, to advance stealthily. Activate thought acceleration. Great Sage. Thought acceleration activated. In an instant, Yayu found the clues left by the target. He followed these subtle traces all the way. Although the ordinary body flicker technique was not bad, its speed was ultimately inferior to water instantaneous body technique. After running at full speed for over a dozen minutes, he finally closed the distance to within 100 meters. This was also thanks to the thought acceleration state, which allowed Yayu to discover those almost invisible traces in the dark forest. When he arrived at this gloomy forest, he noticed that the other party had clearly slowed down. Seizing the opportunity, he quietly approached. Hiding behind a large tree, Yayu carefully observed the movements ahead. Naruto, who was previously carried on his shoulder, was gone. Where did he hide Naruto? From leaving Konoha and chasing all the way here, the other party had no time to stop at all, so how could he have had a chance to hide? Did that person not follow? The other party frowned and muttered to himself. Yayu had originally thought the other party stopped due to exhaustion, but it seemed he was deliberately waiting for him. What exactly does he want to do? Why stop and wait specifically? Yayu gripped his kunai tightly, his gaze sharp as he stared at the target. Although he remained in invisibility release state, it was inconvenient to perform ninjutsu, but his swordsmanship could still be used normally. Yayu cautiously approached, deciding to subdue the opponent first. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to get any information about Naruto. Walking behind the target, Yayu aimed at his back, raised his hand, and thrust the kunai out fiercely. Her strike was swift and precise, but just as the kunai was about to pierce, she suddenly felt something was wrong. The sensation was not like piercing flesh and blood, but rather like stabbing into wood. Substitution Jutsu. As white smoke burst forth, a log fell heavily to the ground. Yayu tapped his toes and retreated, only to hear several clangs, as 7 or 8 shuriken were already deeply embedded in the spot where she had just stood. A hoarse voice came from the shadows. This little girl also knows invisibility release. Another voice clearly suppressed its surprise. The Moonlight family's invisibility release, what is her relationship with Moonlight Jaifeng? The moment the source of the voices was exposed, Yayu's fingertips had already condensed a Zon blue splash of water. When the enemy clearly saw that faint blue, the cold water blade was already pressed against his throat, the girl's figure spun like a top, her kunai tracing an eerie trajectory through the night sky. Clang! The sound of metal breaking was clearly audible. The enemy stared with wide eyes at his kunai, broken into 2 pieces, and his samurai uniform suddenly ripped open at the chest, blood flowing down like snakes. Where is Uzumaki Naruto? Yayu held the dripping kunai with a reverse grip, the blade constantly exuding a chilling aura. Water release. Wild water wave. Before the opponent could answer, the girl's left hand flung out a shower of silver stars, knocking down hidden weapons, while her right hand quickly formed hand signs, leaving behind an afterimage. A massive wave suddenly surged up on the dry ground, a flood 20 to 30 meters wide completely engulfing the enemy. The observing ninja were too stunned to speak. To unleash such a massive water release in a place without water, has this girl really not graduated from the ninja school? From the murky waves, a terrified whisper of the fleeing person faintly emerged. Monster, it's a tailed beast in human skin. Yayu seized the opportunity and used the water instantaneous body technique again, pulling the enemy out from the rolling water current. He leapt onto an unsubmerged branch, holding his kunai to the opponent's throat. Where is Naruto? Who are you? The captured enemy suddenly grinned. Impressive brat, I didn't expect you to be so strong in swordsmanship and ninjutsu. This time we miscalculated, he added grimly, but you've already been targeted, even if you deal with us, it's useless, you can't escape. With a flash of a blade, that person actually ended his own life without hesitation. Yayu was startled, he would rather die than reveal Naruto's whereabouts. He immediately formed hand signs, and dozens of water clones scattered. Search. He must be nearby. From being intercepted to tracking all the way here, Yayu had been thinking rapidly. After leaving Konoha, he carefully checked every trace along the way, confirming that the other party had no possibility of transferring. But Naruto seemed to have vanished into thin air. Over 20 clones searched the entire forest, but still found nothing. Yayu frowned. If it really was a space-time ninjutsu, why bother leaving Konoha so far away? Unless Naruto was never taken out at all. When he quietly returned to Konoha, he happened to overhear the Anbu talking. Why is the nine-tailed brat unconscious here? Third Hokage-sama said to just send him back. The lanterns of Konoha village swayed gently in the night wind. Yayu, in the shadows of the corner, gripped his kunai tightly. Naruto lay near a pile of garbage not far away, like a discarded rag doll. Kidnapped him and then left him here. He stared at the 3 still warm corpses at the alley entrance, blood droplets from his blade seeping into the soil. The metal collar on his neck suddenly grew hot. The target of these people was never that blonde boy. The oil lamp in the underground cave cast a yellow glow on Danzo's bandages. He stroked the dragon head on his cane, his eyes suddenly opening wide, causing the reporting ninja to kneel even deeper. 3 Chunin, all dead. He stared at the autopsy scroll spread on the table, the knife marks on the throats of the 2 corpses as smooth as mirrors. A child of the Moonlight family, Danzo gazed at the dripping water droplets from the cave ceiling, as if seeing the man with the respirator in Hidden Rain Village. The glass window of the Hokage building reflected Hiruzen Sarutobi's tightly furrowed brows. The 4 characters, water release body flicker, were heavily circled in red in the report, and beside it lay Uzumaki Naruto's mud-stained orange jacket. He suddenly coughed violently, and the spark from his pipe fell onto the unregistered list of root ninja, burning a charred hole. Who did this? What is that old man Danzo up to again? He actually mobilized root members for an assassination. Who was the target? I really want to ask him face to face, but given his stance, he's clearly ready to show his true colors. Even if I ask, that cunning old fox certainly won't tell the truth. To openly act in the village is simply to disregard the Hokage. And this time, it also involved Naruto. Most likely, that kid stumbled upon something unspeakable, which is why he was knocked out and left by the roadside. Once Naruto wakes up, Hokage-sama must personally interrogate him. After the Anbu took Naruto away, Yayu quietly returned home. He suddenly realized that the real target was not Naruto at all, but himself. Konoha's Anbu had always been heavily guarded, yet at the time of the incident, they were collectively, coincidentally, absent. Only, besides the 3rd Hokage, who could mobilize the Anbu's manpower. So it was Danzo playing tricks. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe for more videos.